Hello and welcome to the tutorial where we're going to take a look at Hearts of Iron 4 for complete beginners. And it's updated for 2023. There's been so many updates for this game since it came out all those years ago. It's time for a brand new tutorial, so if you're new to the game, this is the video for you. When I was new to Hearts of Iron 4, and I'm going back a few years, I found it very, very difficult to get to the hang of. And the reason is, I got a whole bunch of strategy games, a whole bunch of real-time strategy games. This game was so different to the standard sort of user interface and the way it worked, and I found that quite difficult. And so with that in mind and all the new changes, let's crack on with the latest video right now. So here we go. So I'm going to come over onto my left screen, got Hearts of Iron here. I'm going to use the Steam edition, and when you press play, whether you've just got Hearts of Iron 4 or you've got some sort of bundle where you've got a whole bunch of packs, I recommend the first time you play it, load it up like this. And when you come to this screen, on your Paradox menu, come down to your DLC button and make sure that you don't enable them. Make sure that they're all disabled. And the reason you want them all disabled, and again, it depends how many packs you have as to what you see here. If you're new to the game, it's already complex enough without adding. Each one of these add-ons adds a whole new list of features and mechanics into the game, which is fine when you already know how to play it. And once you've got your head around it, it gets quite easy. You want more things, more in depth. But to begin with, anything that you may have, turn them off. Now, the game may look a little different to when you see other people play when you've got it turned off. And of course, that's because we've turned a bunch of extra additions off. And so once you've done that, come back to your home page, press play, and with that, we're going to get into the game. And so let's do away with my own little bit of music there we had for the intro. Now, Hearts of Iron 4 does have its own bit of music. I'm not sure if it's copyrighted, but just in case it is, I'm just going to slide the volume down for a sec. And here we are in game. And so for the first time you play, click single player, new game. And I recommend going January 36. And lots of people recommend this, and for good reason. It lets you set things up the way that you want. And when you're playing for the first time, you need to understand how it all works anyway. And it's going to give us a bit of time before things kick off. And so go there, click select. And like many say, I suggest you go Germany first, and for two main reasons. Number one, it's a lot easier to attack with a superior army when you're planning it ahead of time. It's a lot more difficult playing as some of the other countries where maybe you're defending, where, yeah, you know an attack's coming because that's a historical precedent, but you can't do anything until then. And I know there's certain ways and means you can get around the historical thing, but for now, let's just keep things simple. Stick with a German guy. It's sad I don't even feel like I can use his name too much on YouTube for the sake of getting banned. You can even see by default they've grayed out his portrait. If you get your add-ons, you do get his portrait like the rest of them. It's a silly thing, is that. All right, we'll select country there. Now, this is important when you come to this menu, and I will restore the sound in a sec once we're in game. You've got your difficulty levels here from Elite, Veteran. Now, most people play as regular, and that is you need to have regular to get your achievements and so on. But when you're new, come over to civilian. It's going to make things a lot easier. Now, when you hover the mouse over, this is one thing that you're going to hear, whether it's in this video or any video ever about this game, you're going to hear people going on about modifiers. Modifiers, modifiers, modifiers. And let's get this one, that if there's one thing that you take away from this video, I want it to be what a modifier is, because you're going to hear it all the time. And so like any game that you play, whether it's a strategy game or any game at all, behind the scenes, you're going to have all these mechanics in the game that make the game work. Yeah, the coding from whoever makes the game. And in this case, you can see that what this modifier, if we take a look at the top line there where there's the green, it says political power gain plus 50%. And so political power is a mechanic in this game. We'll get to see that in a minute. And by opting to go civilian, there's a modifier, and in this case, it's going to give us an extra 50% additional political power. In other words, it's going to make it easier. Generally speaking, green is good. Green is something that gains in your favor. Now, if we come over to veteran, for example, you can see the political power is knocked off by 10% or a 10% negative modifier. And so now that we've got a head around what modifiers is, let's go with the civilian one. Here we've got Ironman mode. What Ironman mode is, in a nutshell, without it, you can save a game as you go. You can play, you can make a decision. Let's say you save the game, you make the decision to invade Russia, and then you think, oh, that wasn't the best thing to do. You can quit the game, reload your save game, play from there and decide, well, now I'm not going to invade Russia. Ironman mode prevents you from being able to cheat by taking away the ability to save a game. It still does save a game when you quit, so you don't have to do it all in one go. You can come back on another day and finish it, but it prevents you being able to cheat. And so for a beginner, I recommend turning that off. And then finally, we've got historical AI focuses. All that this does is it makes all the other countries that are not played by a real player, in other words, the rest of the world, is going to play according to how his story unfolded, according to the official narrative, World War II era. And so France is going to do what they do, the UK, America, Russia, whatever. Everybody is going to do as they did in the war. Now, you could yourself cause some action to take place. For example, let's assume somehow we invaded and took over England before 1940. Well, clearly the AI controlling England is then knocked out the game, and so it can't do anything that, it did from that date on. But it's going to try where possible. And so I suggest leaving this option ticked, because then, especially as a beginner, you kind of know what to expect from different countries based on, the history. If you turn that off, the individual AI countries are going to do what is best for them at any given moment. Sod what happened in history. And so let's turn that on, or we'll leave that on, Iron mode off and civilian. We'll go to begin. And while the game loads, it's going to happen actually really quite quickly on my system now, because I don't have any of the DLC. Every one of the DLC adds more complexity, and it just makes it take slightly longer to load. I'm going to come up here to the music one, and if I put game sounds on, you can see there's a tune just coming to an end. I'm just going to hit pause there and then get rid of that. And again, the only reason I'm doing that is to avoid any sort of copyright issues, because I want people to be able to enjoy this video and make use of it. And so this is the screen that you come to when you first join, and it's paused, which is what you want it to be. You move your mouse around, or you can hold the middle mouse wheel around or middle click and drag the screen around as well. We've got a bunch of icons up here. We're going to run through those. Here is a bunch of different menus. So we come over here, for example, to decisions. We come over here to research. We come over here to diplomacy, trade screen, and so on. We will go through each one of those. We've also got the main menu here, and this allows us to make some decisions with regards to how we want to run the country and how we want to run the government. To make changes here, we need political power. Remember, we mentioned that earlier, and the modifier, we get an extra 50% political power. That means because we're playing on the easy mode, I think it was called civilian, with more political power coming in, it's going to allow us to make changes quicker than if we were, say, playing on a regular mode. Down here, we've got our divisions as well as army groups, and you can see currently we haven't got any. And so we got some guys down here, but they're just not assigned. Now, each one of these, if we click on it, so for example, this one here is an infantry division. And so this is not one soldier, it's an entire division. And if we click further onto here and click template, we can actually see what comprises this guy. So this one little icon comprises of an engineer company, an artillery support company, as well as you can see here, we've got 9 separate basic soldier guys. Now, all together, this is what makes up the entire division, and you can see what it comprises of. There's an officer in charge. We've got 12 pieces of artillery. We've got 910 rifles, and we've got 30 support equipment. And so all of that together with 9,000 men, if you look there, in fact, it's 9,600 troops. is in that one icon. So that there is almost 10,000 people with all the equipment. If we look over here, we can see it's the same icon. It's called the same thing. It's probably going to be the same thing again. We'll take a look at changing that. And there you can see we've got the engineer company, the support artillery, and these 9 groups there of just regular infantry. Now, if we look here on the support equipment, remember we were talking about modifiers. Once again, if we hover the mouse over, having an engineer company, look at the difference it makes. It makes it 10% better to attack against a fort. It makes it 25% better when defending against attacks from a fort, which is kind of going to be unlikely that a fort is coming to attack your division, but you never know. You can see we've got quite big improvements for crossing a river, plus 25%. And there you can see the modifiers go on. Now, you can also get modifiers in the negative, so not necessarily everything is a good thing. For example, if we look down at the top where it says engineer company, and we come down defense, breakthrough, and so on. If we come over to the organization line, we can see we actually lose 3 points on the organization aspect for having a support company. Now, that's a very small amount of organization to lose when you look at all the things that we gain, but it's just something to be aware of. Not everything, in fact, let me rephrase that. Every single thing you do in this game has good points and bad points, and it's about trying to weigh up, you know, which is the best of a bad lot, if you like, or which is the best of a good lot. Now, these 2 guys are currently operating independently of each other. We can see we got this guy here, and we can select him by left clicking, and we could give him a separate issue, so an order, sorry. So we could right click on the map and he will move there. Now, he's not going to get there instantaneously because the game's paused, but if we were to unpause the game, in fact, let's do so. I'm just going to hit spacebar to do that. It's going to go quite slow because you can see how slow the time is passing here. 1 hour. 1 hour, it's now 3 p.m, 4 p.m. on the 1st of January. And if we're looking at distance-wise, and remember these guys are walking, it's quite a long distance that they're covering. It's probably like from one county to the next somewhere in eastern Germany. And you can see there the progress bar is about 50%. Now, if we increase the speed of time, you can see it gets there ever so slightly quicker. Now, what these figurines are doing, again, they're just representative of. So we'll pause it again. So, you know, a big mistake to make is think this is just one guy holding a gun. As we've said before, it's 9,600. And again, if you want to figure that out, click on the guy, click here on his group, click on the template button down here, and there you can see what comprises of him together with his manpower. You've also got the statistics here. So soft attack, you know, he's not too bad at soft attack. Hard attack. So soft attack is basically against, let's just call it what it is, killing other people, right? Hard attack is like how good are they at going against tanks, for example. Air attack is pretty self-explanatory. Defense, how good is this unit at defending? And you can see here they're probably best at defending compared to anything else. And so what that means is if you've got a front line and you don't want the bad guys coming into your territory, this would be an ideal unit to line up against that line. Here we've got breakthrough, which means how good are they at attacking while also being attacked from the other sides. And so breakthrough on a tank, for example, is going to be much higher than on an infantry division, because a tank, if you think about it, can keep on attacking even though people are shooting bullets at it from various sides. We've got the armor is clearly 0 because it's an infantry guy. But if you were to build tanks, and the thicker the tank, the higher the armor piercing. Again, allowing you to, oh, it says it there, having equal or greater piercing to the target, allowing you to do more damage. What this means basically is if they're attacking a tank, and you're unlikely to get a tank that's got an armor value less than 4, but let's just say there's a tank that's valued at 3 and there's another tank over there with an armor value of 5, and you put these guys up against it, they're going to be far more successful dealing with the tank of 3 armors versus 5. Now, I know there's a lot to take on board, but all of this is key to understand when it comes to the rest of it. Initiative is just how long do they fight for? How quick do they get reinforcements? We'll take a look at that. Entrenchment, and again, that's in part due, or in totality actually, due to the engineer company. When troops entrench, you know, they dig a foxhole, basically. They line up. They get an additional bonus for being entrenched, as you'd expect, right? So they're more difficult to kill. And then we've got the combat width as well. This is just made up with how many units. So each unit in here has got a combat width. So for example, if we look at this guy here, this soldier group guy, he's got a combat width of 2. We'll take a look at designing a template in a bit, but if you go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, all the way up, you get 18, and that explains why the combat width there of 18. It matters because the wider the combat width is, think of it like if you've got a thin line and you've got a narrow combat width, you've got a large distance with a few amount of soldiers covering. So it's going to be a very thin line, very easy for the enemy to break through. But if you've got a fat combat width, you're going to have more soldiers in the same area. That means it's going to be more difficult for the enemy to break through. But it also means that you need to get more supplies to that area. So again, it's easy to think, oh, I just need to get all of these values high and then I'll win. Well, yeah, but you can't get them all high. That's the thing. And so there comes the need to have different types of units for different situations. So let's look at placing these two guys together, and we'll create an army to do that. And so if we select the first guy, we can hold down shift and then just drag and click and select the second guy, or we could just draw the box around them both. You can see they're both selected here. And now all that I'm going to do is left click on this army here. And now both of these two guys have been added to this army. Now currently we've not got any commander that's running this army because we've just created it, and we can see it's actually called Army 1. Now you can click on Army here, Army 1 on the text, and you can call it whatever you like. Let's call it like the Americans would call it, First Army rather than Army 1. But you know, call it whatever you want. You can call it cats and dogs as well if you like. You know, it doesn't matter what you call it. It's just for you to refer to. You can see they've got a colour and an insignia here as well to the left of it. So you can click that. And sometimes I just like to leave it on default because sometimes you'll get like 5 or 6 armies together. And sometimes you're juggling things around as the war goes on. And suddenly you end up with 3 armies that are all coloured red. And then you want to come in here and think, right, well, I don't got a green one. So I'll click on green. Or perhaps I want to customize it a little bit and make it look like that. And then you can just roll with it like that. And again, you can change the insignia as well. And this is, you know, you can mess around with that to your heart's content. And so there we've got an army, cats and dogs. If we click on the portrait here or here, we can add a general to it. So if we click on that, we've got our list of generals here. And then that they're going to command the army. Now you see, as with everything, different people in the game but better at different things. For example, let me find him. There he is. Bok, very good at attacking. In fact, he's the highest one to begin with at attacking. You see he's got a +5 modifier there on the attack. And you can see that works out at about a 12.5% advantage. And so if you think about it, every unit in there that's capable of attacking, if you start attacking and you assign him as the commander, they're going to get 12.5% extra ability to attack. And so it's worth keeping an eye on your best generals and putting the best generals with the best suited units. For example, although this guy's very good at attack, he doesn't have, if you look at some of his traits here, it's going to take slightly longer to do his planning, although people are less likely to get wounded, so that's good. But he's harsh. And so because of that, yes, you're going to get an extra bit on attack, but it's going to take your troops longer to recover after they have done an attack. So it swings and roundabouts. He doesn't have a Panzer icon though, but if you come over to someone like Heinz Gurdian, he was like the father of you know, Blitzkrieg and Panzers, and, you know, he wrote books on the, you know, I'm talking real life here. So he was a big time Panzer guy. You can see he's got a bunch, and included here, he's got Armor Officer for improved experience, and here he's got a Panzer Leader. And so in this guy's case, if you've got tanks, he's a good one to start with. But so although this guy's got a higher attack value, this guy's only got 3 on the attack. Because of the Panzer thing differential here, it's actually better to put your Panzers with this guy and, for example, leave this guy with something like regular soldiers. And so soldiers we've got, let's give him, and there we go, we got 2 there. Now I'm going to pick a couple more. And again, if you zoom in, sometimes these units amalgamate together just for the sake of the zoom, but they are still separated. And let's, in fact, here we go. Here we've got 3 Panzer guys. So let's select these 3. We see there's 3 units here, or 3 divisions. And if we click on each one of these, and again, the template, we can see what comprises the Panzer division. Now, we can change these. We'll take a look at that in a bit. But for now, it's suffice to say, we've got 4 Panzer units, and we've got 2 lots of motorized infantry, as well as a motorized recon company, the engineer, and the support artillery. And again, we can see what makes up one of these, and it's actually less than the infantry. You can see it takes 5,000 men for one of these, and that makes sense because we've got fewer units here. We can see in totality, we've got 12 pieces of artillery unit, 250 rifles, 90 trucks, 40 pieces of support equipment, and obviously the tanks, the Panzer 1, and we've got 240 of them. You can see it's 240 out of 214. In fact, all of these are fully supplied. That's because they've got all the men that they need. 5,000 out of 5,000. They've got all the equipment that they need. And when they start having battles or attritions, you're going to start losing pieces of equipment. You're going to start losing men. That makes sense. As you make more equipment, that stuff is going to be shipped out to the front line. It's not an instantaneous thing. It takes a little bit of time to get there, but when it does, the entire division will be resupplied, which hopefully also makes sense. And again, there's modifiers for that, so they can get stuff quicker and all the rest of it. But for now, let's just take these 3 units. So again, where the tank guy is there, just the tank units, and we're going to put those into a new army as well. We're going to come over here to assign the leader, and we're going to pick this Heinz guy. And so now what's important to understand is we've got 2 separate armies that we've made. And you can make as many as you want. I mean, you could make an entire army with just 1 division if you like, although I don't recommend it. You can see each one of these generals is capable of effectively commanding 24 separate divisions. You can give them more, but then any modifiers that they have are going to start becoming useless. But they're very good at commanding up to and including 24. There's nothing gained by giving them less than 24 is what I'm saying. And so where possible, I try to get these towards 24 unless I've got a smaller army that's doing a very specific purpose on the side, or I'm running low on units and I'm trying to cover too many things. Now these 2 guys you can control now based on just clicking on their portrait, and it's going to select all the units that are assigned to that guy. Now we can remove units, or we can assign more. So let's say this guy here, Bock, you see he's currently got 2. We want him, let's look for somebody else that's already in the area. Here we've got 2 more guys. Let's say, well, we want those to be with him as well. So if we click on these 2 guys, I'm going to right click on the Bock guy, and now Bock has got 4. So if we click on Bock again, now you can see it's going to select all 4 of the military units. We click on Heinz Gurdian, it's going to select the tanks. Now, if we click Bock, let's say we want him to put a front line along the border here with Poland. We click on him once. I'm going to press the Z key. And that is also the same as, if we look here. Where are we? I always use Z key, so I'm never... Oh, where is it? A front line, there we go. So they call it front line. So you can click on that icon as well, but I prefer Z because it's the only 2 keys I really know are Z and X. And Z is for your defensive front line, and X is when you're attacking. So we'll click this guy, click Z. Now you can see there's a bunch of these flashing sort of yellow dotted lines, and it's basically saying, where do you want the front line to be? You can't draw it anywhere. It can only, the front line can only be at the front line. And that is only going to be between some area that you control and some area that somebody else controls. Whether you are at war or not doesn't matter. The point is, we're Germany, they're Poland, and at this moment in time, they're their own country, we're our own country. Where the two meet is the front line. Now, if we hover over, you can see it goes green, and that's basically to say, all right, you want the front line to be... Sorry about all that banging. You want the front line to be between... I'm going to have to put the music on, sorry about that. Always summit when I'm trying to do a stream. Right, so there's Germany, there's Poland. Here we got the green line, so I'm going to left click once. And that's now assigned it. You can see now we've got this little line here. Now, why is it green? Because of the green. It's not quite the same shade, but it's green. If we were to change the color here to blue, notice now the front line changes to a blue. And again, that's how you can start and tell which division is where. But let's just stick with the green for now. Now, obviously, they're not moving. I think that horrible background noise is gone. Obviously, they're not moving, but he is, because we're paused. But when we unpause, General Bock here is going to tell these guys, hey, go up to this line and cover it. It's probably not enough guys to effectively cover the entire front because it's quite a long one. But let's unpause. You can see where the orders each individual unit is given. The reason we can see the orders is because we've got this guy selected. If we unselect the guy, we lose the arrows, but we can still see overall from the strategic view, we've got some kind of division covering that line. Now, if we click on this guy again, if we look at the very bottom here, notice there's this little bit of a green bar and then there's more of a red bar. And what that means is that your general is telling you, hey, we're like 0.25% okay, but by and large, it doesn't look like we've got enough guys or enough forces here to effectively cover this. Now, if it was half red and half green, that means your general's thinking, well, it's 50-50. And so where possible, you always want to have more green than red. In other words, your general being confident that you're going to win in any sort of engagement that may come from what you've asked him to do. Sometimes the value changes over time because, for example, your general's getting more supplies in, so he's thinking, oh, it's happier. You send more units in, so it's happier. Maybe the enemy pulls some away. Maybe attrition affects something. Maybe you change the amount of air cover. Anything like that can affect what the general here thinks. But for now, let's unpause and let him moving guys into place. Sometimes it'll also increase once all his guys are in place and he thinks, actually, it's not as bad as I thought. Now, with them getting into place, you can start and see that even though we're not at war, there's a bunch of Polish troops up on the line. You can see most of them sort of are cavalry units. And if we've got intel, we can actually get some. So you can see we don't really got enough intel here, but we've actually got some intel on this guy, just. And if we click on it, or hover over it rather, we can see, well, there's between 1 and 6 divisions of cavalry units inside this unit. And there's between 1 and 2 units of recon. And again, this makes up your division. Your division, or your entire army rather, is one of these. I keep getting the names muddled up myself, but your army is controlled by a general. And so I'm going to guess that Poland here may, for example, have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 guys all under one general. Currently, we've got 4 under Bock and 3 under Gurdian. And the reason I'm guessing 12 is because all of these guys are on one line. Now, you can add more than one army to a line, and we're going to take a look at doing that now. So first thing is we're going to assign these generals into a new group, and we're going to give that group a field marshal. And so to do that, click on your army, left click, and then we're going to right click on this icon here. You can see it's slightly higher and offset, and that's to indicate this isn't an army but an entire group. You can add up to 5 to a group. So we'll get Bock in there. And then we'll get Heinz in there as well. So left click on Heinz and right click on the group. Now both of these guys are assigned to this Field Marshal. Currently we don't have one, but we can see the nickname group is Army Group 1. Now you can call it what you want. Army Group North, or you know, they give them different names at different points in the war. We'll stick with Army Group 1. We'll click on it here and we'll come over here to assign a commander, and you can see at this stage in the war we've got 3 Field Marshals that we can pick from. You do get 1 or 2 more as the years unfold, and so we got you can see they're all Field Marshals, and you can see once again these guys have got modifiers as well. So if you want to attack, looks like this is the guy to go for. If you want to defend, looks like Modal's the guy that you want. But so for now, let's get this Gunter guy in place. And now, just like before, you can select this guy to give orders, and then he's going to give orders to everybody who's below him. And so it's a quick way to move stuff around. But before we do that, we've got to tell Bock here. In fact, let's let this play out. And just to prove a point, see here, Bock now, all his guys are in position. And he's thinking, well, it's about 50-50. Maybe a tiny bit more. And so what I'm going to do is select Bock here. So again, if you deselect anything by left clicking or just left clicking in the middle of nowhere, come over to Bock. And we're going to see this delete order button. It doesn't delete the unit, it deletes his orders. I'm going to right click it. And if you look, that is the difference between deleting a specific order or deleting all his orders. I want to delete anything that he might have. So I'm going to right click, click OK to confirm. And now we lose the front line because that was his order, right? To hold the front line. And instead of asking Bock to do it or Heinz, I'm going to get the Field Marshal to do it. So I select the Field Marshal. It's going to select everybody under him. So these 4 guys, these 3 tanks, under these generals. I'm going to click the Z key again, which is the front line button here. And I'm going to issue the same order as before. I'm going to left click on the front line. I'm going to unpause. And now the Field Marshal is going to, as best he can, juggle where his tanks and where he wants his forces. And once again, we're going to get this green on red line at the bottom. And once these tanks are in place, I'm going to imagine that the green bar is going to be overwhelming. And there you see it. We've got a full green bar. In fact, this just looks like it's loading up as somebody moves around. And this guy's basically thinking that, yeah, everything is all right. In fact, currently the green bar is a little bit lower. It's saying there that the enemy is stronger. Well, that could be that he's got more intel guys than before, and he's figuring, you know what, we're not as strong as we were. Perhaps Poland has moved more guys into the front. So what I'm going to do, pause the game. I'm going to come over, maybe these 2 guys here, and I'm going to tell these 2 guys, you know what, go over to Bock as well. So left click to select these 2 guys, right click on Bock, unpause the game, and they're going to come over here. Why do they immediately go over there? Because we've assigned them to Bock, and Bock is assigned to this guy, and this guy we've told, hold the front line. And so any units we assign to these guys are automatically going to be given orders by their respective guys to carry out what we asked them to do. And so that's a brief little look at controlling armies. Let's now look at these icons here. Every time you got these little icons at the top of the screen, it means there's something trying to get your attention. Ideally, you want to get these done right at the beginning of the game, but I just wanted to have a little look at controlling armies. Oh, by the way, one last thing about the armies. Once you've got this line here, you know, using the Z key, if you want to plan an attack, the easiest way to do it with this guy selected, with your front line against whichever country it is you want to go at, so let's say here Poland, then press the X key. And I said there was only 2 buttons, Z and X. Z is for defend, X is for attack. Of course, there are more buttons, but those are the 2 that if you take anything away from this video, I want it to be the Z key and the X key. What we're going to do now, hit X. And with this front line here, we're simply going to draw a line where we want these guys to advance to. And so this river might be a nice little spot, including Danzig. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to hold right click down and I'm going to drag where I want them to go. And so I'm going to follow that river to about there. And I think that is a good initial attack. And you can see there it went from green to red, from green to yellow. And that's because the front line we were dragging was getting wide. And the Field Marshal's thinking, not entirely convinced we've got enough guys to cover that. It doesn't look terrible, otherwise it would be red, but it's yellow. And so yellow is not the best. Where possible, you want these guys to have green. But we'll get a few more units to these guys before war breaks out. And so that now really is covered. There we can actually see here, we've got 9 divisions from Army Group 1 that is planning to do this. Now you can have a separate line of attack again. So with the same guy still selected, press X again and right click, and then we can continue this. And so what this guy's going to do now is almost as a secondary push. He's going to go there and then carry on sweeping down here, which makes sense. That's going to cover the entire area there up against the river. All right. Let's look at these icons then, because they're nagging at us to do something. The first one is we've got research slot available. So if we tick on this, we can see we've got a bunch of technologies we can begin to research. You've got up to 30 days to fill this graph. What that means is as soon as one of these comes available, you can start research. But let's say you're busy doing something and it takes 2 or 3 days or even 29 days for you to start research. You're not going to lose any of that time, because all of this research here is going to be automatically dumped into whatever you choose. Now, let's say the thing takes 100 days to research. You let this fill up to 30 days. Clearly, it's going to take then 70 days to research from that point. What you can't do is wait 50 days and then expect it to knock 50 days off, because the maximum this can fill up to is 30 days. So make sure that you don't waste these, you know. Up along here is not a waste, because again, it's just going to dump it in on the research. If it gets to the end, you're wasting research. So make sure, and it costs you nothing to use these, by the way. So don't think, oh, I don't want to research anything because that's going to cost money or resources or manpower. It doesn't. It's a completely separate unto its own thing. Make sure you make use of these. And so, just like with any sort of strategy game, very early on, you want to look at expanding your resources and your economy and your industry. And later on, you want to look at improving your units and your guns and your weapons and your ships and planes and so on. And so to begin with, we're going to ignore the military side. We're going to come over here to the industry side. And we're going to take a look here and get this one. So if we have a look, what is it going to unlock? Well, first thing, it's going to unlock the rest of the tree that comes after it. But in and of itself, it's going to increase the production efficiency capability, or the cap, by 10%. And so what that means is every factory that you have in the game that is producing, whether it's rifles or planes or whatever you ask it to do, is going to have an efficiency. So in other words, if you have a factory that's making, let's just be simple, guns, and all that they're doing is churning out guns, that factory is going to get more and more efficient at churning out guns the longer it's making guns for, because, well, people are getting more experienced at making guns in that particular place. If you swap the factory over, the same factory, and say, I don't want you to make guns now, I want you to go make aeroplanes, it's going to lose all that efficiency, because all the guys that knew what they're doing now don't know what they're doing, and it's going to take them a while until they start figuring out, oh yeah, I'm making planes, and I start to make sense, right? Experience. What this does is increase the maximum amount of that experience by 10%. In other words, if they're making nothing but guns and the efficiency cap is increased by 10%, at the end of any week, you can have 10% more guns from the same factory. Assuming that you allow them time to build up that experience, yeah? Takes up with time. So we'll, that sounds like a good one. First for the 10% and secondly for the rest of the tree. We're going to click on the second guy, and there you can see it's going to take 120 days to do, and it's 7.7% done. Why? Because of this time here, and that makes sense. 10 days out of 120 is about 7%, right? Let's click on the second one. You see now here, this one is being researched already. Construction. Time to research 163 days. That's going to increase our construction speed as well as factory repair speed. Repair speed because you're going to get attacked both from bombs, potential military activities, and also subverters. Yeah, people that are coming in, spies, that kind of thing. And so it's not just about building stuff, it's about repairing it. And so that's a good one to do early on. So we'll make sure we get that one. Over here, we'll look, well, these are ahead of time. If we take a look, the technology is basically a year ahead of its time. The more ahead of time it is, you're going to get a penalty. Doesn't mean you can't research it. It just means it's going to take longer than normal to research it. And that's basically to prevent you just like running all the way down one of these. Research this, then this, then this, and have it unlocked by the time, you know, before war even breaks out. It's not to say it's impossible to do, but you're going to get penalized heavily for doing it. And of course, while you're researching this, and it's taking you 10 times as long to do, or whatever it is, if you go ways ahead. In fact, you can see how long it's going to take. 1,378 days if we were able to start researching that now, which is, it's about 4 years. So to tie up one piece of research for 4 years, you know, when you could be researching, I don't know how many things taking half a year each. You know, you can figure it out. Let's come over to the engineering. We've got electronic engineering here, and that's going to increase our research speed by 3%. And that's also going to unlock the radio and then radar technology, as well as mechanical computing. So both of those sound good. Mechanical computing is going to help us with basically research speed, as well as code breaking, stuff like that. And so we've got one more slot. And if we look here, we can't do anything else here. We can't do anything else here, and we're still a ways off atomic research. And if we come over to air, sure, we could go for heavy fighter, but I think that's a waste of time. Come over to the Navy screen. See, most of these are ways off. Sure, we could research a sort of a battleship. We could even unlock carriers, but you know, Germany's not got a very big Navy, and these are very expensive to build. And because we don't got a big Navy, we'd probably end up losing it. And so it's a waste of time. Upgrading artillery, that's going to be maybe more useful. Upgrading tank stuff, well, not really much we can do here. We've already got this guy unlocked. This one's 3 years ahead, so maybe not. Engineer, next one, well, there's a way off. Now you can see there's a bunch of stuff here that we could be doing. So we've got military police, so we're going to need that once we start occupying enemy territories, but not yet. Again, we want to try and get something that's going to give us benefit now. If we need something in 3 years' time that's going to benefit us in 3 years, to research it now is not the best way of going about it. You know, you want to try and do something that's going to benefit you more in short order. We've got maintenance companies, so that's going to improve the reliability of tanks as well as capturing enemy equipment. We've got field hospital, you know, it's fairly self-explanatory. Well, the way that this works though is it's a weird kind of way. Basically, if you've got 1,000 people in an army and let's say 100 people get killed, well, now that army is going to have 900 people in it, and it's going to replace the remaining 100 people by recruiting from the available population. The available population is up here, in this case, 1.3 and a bit million. That's not the total population. That's the amount of population that you have ready to fight using the current laws that you've got set and everything. Same situation, 1,000 people, you lose 100. Having this field hospital, what's going to happen is maybe 10 of those 100 that you've lost, rather than being dead and written off, if you like, are going to get dumped back into your overall population. And as you get higher levels, more and more. So if we have a look here, click for details. Yeah, so we're going to save 20%, and casualties will not negatively impact war support. So that's kind of important. Now, if we have a look on this one here, we can see it's going to add 10% and reduce 10% experience loss. And so when it says here add 10, but hang on, this one was add 20. or sorry, yeah, add 20, it's because they're cumulative. And so this is going to be 20%. You're going to get this one, that's going to be 30%. If you get that one, that makes it 40. And finally, that would end up with 50. So what that would mean, if you unlocked all of these and you lost that same 100 guys in that fight, 50 of them are actually going to magically reappear in your manpower. And so if you're in a country that's got a limited amount of people, well, all of them have, but someone like Russia's got a lot more people it can throw away in the World War II versus, say, a country like Germany. Something like this may be something you want to look at, and especially for the war support. You don't want to lose war support, because if you lose that, they're not going to go along with you wanting to attack people. And things are going to start going wrong in other ways as well if you try and override them. And then finally, we've got the infantry research page. So you've got your improving different types of weapon equipment here, support equipment and different weapons, as well as motorized trucks. Again, you get your add-ons unlocked, your DLCs, you're going to get a lot more menus and a lot more technologies. For now, I think this one will be a good one to go for. Equipment there, or my artillery. You know what, I'm going to go with the support artillery. Let's go with that. And so now we got all 4 things done there. We see the research icon disappears. We've now got the free civilian factories. There's 2 types of factories in this game. Military factories and civilian factories. The civilian factories you have to have, and they supply food and, you know, all the goods and services to your peoples. You don't have to worry about it. You just need to know that some of your factories are doing that. When you have spare civilian factories, in other words, let's say you've got 20 factories and you need 10 in order to cover all the needs of your population, those factories enable you to build new stuff. What you want to build is up to you, but in the early game, the best thing to build is more factories, because the more factories, that's going to give you more build power, and build power is what we're going to really need, and you're always going to be lacking build power. Always lacking build power, because you always want to build more, because it's a war. More stuff, more factories, more tanks, more planes, more oil rigs, more supply lines, more everything. Radars, air bases, everything. And so, if we click on this guy, free civilian factories, here you can see, I just used 10 as an example, but that actually turns out to be the case. We're using 10 factories to supply our population. We're actually gaining 3 factories from trade, but we're giving off a factory to trade. This is actually a really important time. I'm going to go over resources on this game, because this is so unlike any other game, and I actually found this to be confusing. So the only one resource, the only one that you can actually gather up and accumulate is up here, and that is oil or fuel. And you can see this graph here, full bar or empty. You can see currently it's about 3/4 full, and these up arrow chevrons mean we're actually gaining fuel over time. You can knock yourself out reading where it's all coming from and all going to. Every other resource that you do need, by the way, to build tanks, planes, boats, you know, you name it, comes from your... Let's have a look. Where are we on the resources page? It's somewhere over here. There we go, F8. So if we zoom out, so we can see here we're getting 4 oil from Hanover. If we come over here, we can see there's 30 aluminium from there, and there's 127 steel from there. We've got some tungsten here, steel, as well as some chromium, some aluminium down here, and you get the idea. Doesn't seem like there's anything coming from over here. And if you look, we can also see that there's a bunch of resources and materials in foreign countries. You may want to think about that when you're looking at where to invade. So, to have 114 steel coming from Zaxxon, that doesn't mean there's 114 in storage. What it means is that your income, if you like, per day, per month, whatever, is 114. just for occupying that territory. And there's some modifiers, you know, that can make that go up or go down. So if we start building tanks, weapons, whatever it is that uses steel, we can have as many factories on the go as we want, providing the factories exist. And they're going to use up to and including 114 steel. Clearly we're going to get extra over here, but let's just pretend this tile was the only thing that we had. The factories are going to build up to that amount of steel. Again, per week, doesn't matter. It's just, and let me just show you where these are. If we come over to the production here. So here we go on the tanks. So we've currently got 2 factories producing tanks, the Panzers, and we can see between them, they're using 6 units of steel. Well, clearly, if we were just going off this tile, we would be able to produce loads more tanks. So, for example, if we were to set 3 factories producing tanks, now they're going to use 9 steel. It makes sense, right? The 1 factory is just using the 3. So 5 is going to be 15. So that's fine. And again, we can cover that because we've got plenty of steel. Now, there are other things here like the weapons that are going to use in steel. Different objects here use different types of resources and at different amounts. You can see the artillery here is requiring some tungsten and the trucks here is requiring rubber. The reason it's red is because we don't have enough rubber. Just because we're not using all the steel that we're creating doesn't mean, oh well, it's going into a stockpile and we can use it later on. No. It literally just disappears into the ether. So if you don't use everything you need, it disappears into the ether. However, if you haven't got enough, you get this red thing here, and basically these things are not going to build, or they're going to build very, very slowly because there's not enough to go around. In order to resolve that issue, we either need to find somewhere to get hold of rubber, but too early on and we can't certainly go to war yet. So the only way to resolve this issue is to trade for rubber. So remember, you're producing too much, it goes into the ether, you don't produce enough, things slow right down, or you've got to trade. Now, when I say things go into the ether, that's not entirely true. And again, if we come over to the free civilian factories here, you can see we're actually gaining 3 factories from trade. Factories are basically treated like money. And so when they're not building stuff, you can use a factory for trade. Now, that doesn't mean you send a factory off to somewhere else. Again, this is one of the key weird concepts of this game. But once you get your head around it, it makes, you know, it's easy to understand. Imagine that we've got a factory spare, which we do. We've got a free civilian factory, and we come over to trade. We can see here we're light on rubber. We know we haven't got enough rubber. We can see we've got a deficit of 5. What we can do is come over to the rubber menu here, and we see these countries here. Dutch East Indies, you see he's got loads of rubber to spare, almost 350 spare rubber. So what we can do is trade with this guy and say, hey, we want some of your rubber. It's going to cost 10 convoys to do because he's like halfway around the world. And what we're going to trade is literally a factory. Again, it's not that the factory is disappearing. It's that while you're using the factory for trade, you can't use the factory to do anything else. And so imagine our factory now, and in this case, we're going to use 1 factory. And in return, we're going to get 8 pieces of rubber. What's this our factory doing? Well, it's making widgets, and it's sending the widgets over to the Dutch East Indies. And in return, they're sending us rubber back. Doesn't matter what the widgets are. All that matters is that the convoys get there. So if we were at war, some of these convoys are probably going to get sunk by the British Navy. But for now, it's just suffice to say, you trade the production capability, that's probably a better way of saying it, of the factory in return for them sending us rubber. Now, we still got to build the factories, and that takes time. So it's not like we're getting this rubber for free. We're not. Because while we're trading the factory, we can't use that factory to do other things. We can, of course, make more factories, but that, again, that takes time. So let's okay that. So we're going to send the 1 factory to work. And now you can see we're going to be receiving 8 rubber from this guy, and it's going to cost us 10, not cost is the wrong word, but we're going to use 10 convoys to do so. If we come over here to the convoys, we can see now for trade and supply we're using 15. We're probably using some convoys to supply these guys because you can see this area here is actually cut off from the German mainland. Come over to the supply mode, F4, what do you know? We've got this little dotted line here, and that's showing we've got supplies. All the supplies, by the way, come from your capital. Our capital, being the Third Reich, is Berlin, and so everything the game basically stores there, and you've got to connect this by rail and then by boat to anywhere where you've got either an army or occupation in some way or other. You can see there's some minor trade going on between these two places. Probably easier to go by rail, but for whatever reason they're electing to send some through here. You can see we've got a little waterway there. And then here, we've got this blue dotted one. And that's going to go all the way around here. All the way to, you guessed it, the Dutch East Indies. And so these are the 10 convoy ships that are taking what our factory makes, selling it to them, and they're in return trading us the 8 rubber. And that's going to go on for as long as either we allow it or they allow it. Obviously, when you're trading, needs both parties to agree. And so now if we come over to our, where are we? Our production queue. Still showing red, but if I unpause the game and let that update, there we go, updates on the following day. You can see these rubbers are no longer red. In other words, they've got enough supply and that means there's no shortages. And again, now we've got, you see this green number here, we've got 3 pieces of excess rubber per day, if you like. Or it doesn't matter, it's just we've got 3 bits of excess rubber. Because we're trading for that rubber, it would make sense that we don't waste it. Because again, it's not getting stockpiled. What doesn't get used gets wasted. And so we may as well make use of that. And so if we look here for anything that needs rubber, and it's going to be basically things with tires, which is going to include your planes. Say, you know what? I want one more factory making trucks, and now our spare rubber is 2. And I want 2 more guys making fighters, 2 more factories rather. And so now you see it's 0. And 0 would be the most perfectly balanced economy. If everything's at 0, that would mean you're using exactly as much as you're making and you're not wasting anything, you're not short on anything. In reality, numbers are generally going to be slightly over or under. All right, let's get rid of our civilian factories then by making them to use. Now you can see we're actually trading 2 because again, there was already one being traded ahead of time. You can see there for the tungsten, and now we were also trading one for the Dutch East Indies. So if we come over here, I'm going to build more civilian factories. Maybe tempting to build military factories later on. Again, more civilian factories equals more factories to build stuff equals later on you'll be able to build more military factories and quicker. Again, there's anything else. Click in here on the civ factories to build. So again, if you want to see, come over to the construction menu, civilian factory icon here, and you can see you've got all these different tiles here, the different counties, and there's 2 pieces of information. So say, take for example, Franken, 2 out of 6. That means this tile is capable of supporting 6 factories total, and it's already got 2 of them on there. And the 80% means the road network is 80% established. The higher the road network, the faster the factories will build and the more efficient. So you can see it would be slightly better to build something here versus, say, Thuringen. The road network there is only 60%. If we come somewhere, then looks like they're all either 60 or 80. And so those are all pretty good to work with. And so I would suggest starting with the 80. Now these 2 here, see this one can hold 10 factories, this one can hold 10. I'm going to start these 2 off. So I'm going to click on my civilian. I'm going to click. You can see one's going there. I'm going to click again all the way to get 10 factories. The other way to do that quickly is just to hit shift and then click. So here, 3 out of 10, I'm going to hold shift. There's one key you need to learn in this game. It's shift. I ain't gonna keep going on with that silly joke. All right, so there we go. So we got 3 out of 10 with 7 being built, 5 out of 10 with 5 being built there, and that has tied up all our factories. If you look, we're using 15 out of 15 factories in the Rhineland, and then 8 out of 15 in Moselland, and that's because that's the only ones we've got spare. If we add up 15 and 8 together, get 23. Those are the only factories we have spare. Again, 30 in total. 3 are from trade. We're losing 2 to trade. And there's 10 of them that are doing stuff for the civilians. And the rest of them are now building more factories here. Again, you need factories to build anything later on in the game. And to build tanks and stuff, you need military factories. But military factories don't build generic stuff. So you need normal factories to build anything, then military factories to build your tanks. You can convert between the two for a little penalty. And so that's that one. Let's carry on here. We've got 3 military factories. So again, we said military factories, civilian factories, 2 separate things. 3 military factories. Now we did get a couple of them building extra trucks and planes down here. I'm going to say I want 1 more factory building support equipment. 1 more building towed artillery. I want 1 more building light tanks. Now ideally I would like to build more stuff that needs rubber, but because I haven't got any rubber spare, it would be a waste of time. Let's go 1 more artillery. And now that's them all gone. Let's come over now to the Navy side. So your dockyards are not treated as factories. I mean, they are a factory of a sort, but they're separate from all this. We can see there we've got some free dockyards. And if we scroll down, factories cover everything in green, including the aircraft. The dockyards, everything in blue. Now, you can have up to 10 dockyards working on a single unit. I do not see the point of having so many units on the go, each with 1 dockyard, because they take so much longer to create. Granted, you're probably going to have like 10 subs all coming to sea at once or whatever it is, but they're going to take so long to make. To me, I find it much quicker and more efficient to have 1 factory maxed out, knocking out subs as quick as you can. So the way I'm going to do this, you see this sub here is already 3/4 built, and then it's going to make another one. You see this factory is queued up for 2. This one's queued up for 2. In fact, all of them are queued up for 2. This here is only queued for 1. And so when this particular ship finishes, the Deutschland class heavy cruiser, it's not going to start work on another one. And so I may want to say, you know what? If I put all my spare dockyards onto this ship, reckons it's going to finish 22nd of March, 36. We're currently the 11th of Jan. So if I put another dockyard on, look at what it does to the date. 22nd of March, 15th of Feb. So that's quick. In fact, we only had 1 dockyard spare. Assuming we had another dockyard spare and we set that to work, that would knock the date back to the 4th of February. And if we had all 5, this boat would finish on the 26th of January. You see, it's currently the 11th. And so the difference it makes having more factories, obviously stuff gets made quicker. Now, once this battleship is made, because 2 dockyards are working on it, those 2 dockyards are going to become available, and then we'll use those available dockyards to help with something else. Probably try and get these submarines knocked out. Alright, so that's that done. What's this here? Missing equipment. So let's deal with this. What it's saying is we currently need more transport planes and naval bombers, and we don't have enough, and nor are we building any. And so, well, we don't got any spare military factories, but as and when they become available. So what you can do is you can say, right, transport plane was something it needed. Comes onto the bottom of the list. Let's just drag it up to, I like to keep things together. Now you can see we've got 1 factory assigned to it, but it's greyed out. You see all of these are green. That's because we don't got enough. Now what we could do is say remove 1 factory from making fighters, and now that's going to come over to this guy, But you can see this one needs 2 lots of rubber. And we don't got enough there. So I'm going to put that guy back over here by deleting that production line. But I am going to put it in there because, as you saw, as and when factories become available, it will automatically take that space. And it also remove it from this menu. Even though it's not building, it can see that we're trying. And so it wants a naval bomber as well. And so now we've got one factory that will do transport planes when it becomes available, or we build another military factory, and the same again for naval bomber. Now when they start work on that, as we've seen, we're going to be short on rubber. We're going to be for both of these, but we'll worry about that at a future time. For now, we've just got rid of the shortage, you know, the supply message, even though, again, you can see here they're not being created. See, a tactical bomber, one factory is capable of producing just over 2 a month. When it comes to close air support, one factory can produce nearly 4 a month. Now, the reason, obviously, is because this aircraft is much bigger than this one. You can see 3 factories are able to knock out 2 109s every month. Messerschmitt, 3 factories are able to produce 3 trucks a day. We're able to currently also producing just over 1 Panzer every day using these factories. All right, let's have a look at national focus. That's the next one. Generally, you can have one of these on the boil at any one time. And a good one to start with for Germany is Rhineland, simply because Rhineland gives you political power, and political power lets you do stuff, and doing stuff, well, is fun, right? So get Rhineland on the go. Clearly you can start with any, but political power early on is what you want. You certainly want to be looking at the militaristic ones either just before or in the very early stages of going to war. You don't want to, you know, wait until 2 years into a war before you start looking at one of these, because of the advantages it gives for military conflict. And again, over here, the 4-year plan, which those of you up on your World War II history, was his advisors that basically got Germany up to speed economically. Because remember, they were broke when he came to power. Wheelbarrows full of money to buy a loaf of bread kind of broke. And then, you know, certain people worked their magic. A few more people behind the scenes pulling strings that is not part of the official history book. And Germany went from broke to conquering half the world in just 6 years. I mean, it's all BS, but if you believe that sort of thing. And so let's go for Rhineland. Okay, there we go. And yeah, you got your different views here, so you can explore. So here we've got, this is the default view, but it's also your army view, you know, moving stuff. Here you've got your naval view, F2. And so here you'll be able to control. Now, yeah, it's a good time to look at Navy. So you start as with a few military units, you start with a few naval units. And so if we click on this guy here, or this group rather, you can see these are your surface ships. So we've got a few heavy cruisers, a few destroyers, a couple of battleships. And so it's time to assign this guy a commander, like we have our generals for the army. So we'll click up here and once again look for somebody suitable. Now, Admiral Karl Dönitz is the best bar none, but he is the U-boat guy. And so I'm going to give him the U-boats. These are not U-boats, so we're going to give surface fleet. Now, this one gives capital ship attack plus 10. Capital ships are your big ships. We've certainly got 4 of those big ships here. It's also pretty good at defense, and we don't want to lose our capital ships, and so I'm going to go with this guy. And he was actually the commander of the Navy overall, certainly in the early stages of the war. And then over here, the Unterseeboot Flotte, or your U-boat fleet. We've got 8 subs in that group. We've got 6 there. So currently, not many subs at all, right? 14 subs. In real life, Germany knocked out over 1,000 U-boats over the course of the war. But for now, we've got less than 20. And Dönitz we are going to put in charge. Now if we hit here to deselect or simply press escape, that's normally what I do. Every time I've got a window on screen and I want to make it disappear without hitting that, I just hit escape once. Hit escape again, you're going to get your main menu. To get these guys covering a certain area with their navy, simply click on them on the left and then right click where you want them to have the navy to have a presence. So for example, this guy who's got our surface ships, we want to have a presence here and here and here. So I've just right clicked, and so he's going to disperse the ships as he sees fit, and here we're going to tell him what to do. So we can have them on naval exercises, which is going to build up their experience and so on. We've got patrol, which is self-explanatory. They're going to go out looking for stuff and tangoing with it as necessary. We've got strike force, and this is the setting that ideally you want your big ships on, certainly early on in the game when fuel is of a shortage. And strike force, what they'll do is they will wait in harbour, i.e. not using fuel, but if they get word that there's some enemy guys out in the area that you've defined, we're going to go get them. And they'll steam out, they'll go and engage if they can, and when it's done, they'll come back. So that is a good setting to have your big ships on. You can see he reckons green, so he reckons with his fleet he can cover that area, and so that's fine. Coming over here, select the U-boat guy, and you can see, although it's green, it's not quite as bright. So that means this area is covered. It's just letting you know, or just reminding you, but this guy is not dealing with it. And again, if we hit escape and select the guy who is, you see it's much brighter green. Select the guy that it isn't, you see it's dimmer. Now this guy in the war, when it gets going, we want to have his subs out over in the Atlantic, you know, to try and knock out the convoys coming to the UK. But for now, that's a little bit far. We just want these guys training. And again, if we click on one of these units by hitting select here, or we can even click on them here, we can see they're novice. And that's this icon here. So this icon here is, are they beginners? Are they trained, or are they like veterans? And as crews go through training, they can go from like novice to beginner level, if you like, or trained. But then when they go out fighting in the real world, they can get veteran and advanced. You know, if you have a sub crew that's been together for 5 years and they've killed 20 boats, that sub crew is going to be much better than a brand new crew that's just been, you know, fresh out the docks. And you can see here, all of these are novice, and you can see the modifiers is -10. Having a veteran crew, they're going to have positive modifiers. And so what we can do is say, hey, we want you guys to start training. And so I think having them on the Eastern North Sea would be a decent place to train. So we'll right click just the one time. And I'm going to click here, naval exercises. And this guy, you can see both of his groups under him are now going to go training. So if I unpause, you can see they're now moving to their assigned area and they're beginning their training exercise. And if we zoom in, we can actually see, if I hit pause again, you can actually see here. So even if I hit escape, you can see we've got a strike force, well actually 2 strike forces covering this area. We see the same applies here. And the same here, and here we can see we've got one lot of units exercising. That's this group, and over here we can see there's one lot, and that is the larger group. Again, because he's got 2 groups under him. One is training there, one's training here. All right, now what? No division in basic training. So this is just a notification. It's not so much an error, but it's just basically saying, hey, you've got no army training at the moment, so what you've got is what you've got, and that's it. And so to deal with that, I'm just going to get click on the army guy, location. So this is basically saying, where do you want these armies to train and where do you want them to be once they pass out from training. Generally, I like to keep them near the capital in some ways or others. So let's have this infantry lot. Let's have them at Saxon. And now you can see here, here's how many you want. So do you want it to happen once and then when it's done, that's it? Here you can have it twice. So it'll do one lot of units When they're done, it's going to start another lot. Or you can leave it on default, which is infinite. So what this is going to do, it's going to keep knocking out one unit at a time. And when it's done and it's passed out, it's going to automatically begin another. You can add a unit here. And so now it's going to train 2 units at a time. And when they're done, start another 2. What you can see here, if we unpause, we're short on equipment. And so this first unit here, which is labeling 26th Infantry Division, it's only got 64% of the equipment. You see manpower, all the people are there. Infantry equipment 594 out of 910. And so we're short on support equipment, we're short on artillery. If we take a look at the 33rd Infantry group here, they've only got 6%. They've got all the manpower, but only 54 infantry equipment out of 910. 2 support equipment and 2 pieces of artillery. Also on your recruitment page, I suggest you doing this. You've got your reinforcements, upgrade, supply truck and garrison priority. I like to give reinforcements full. So what that means is if there's not enough equipment to go around, reinforcing troops on the front line is going to be a higher priority than, say, making sure that your garrisons have got enough. So I'm going to put garrisons on low. Now, if there's enough to go around, everybody's going to get what they need. But if there isn't, you want to have the priority. I tell you what, upgrades as well is a lower priority. In other words, that I think should be low as well. So I would rather that we have enough supply trucks in the business before we start upgrading equipment when we haven't got enough. And obviously if there's enough for everything, even the low priorities get their piece. So we got a couple of infantry guys training. Let's get a tank division training. And again, we're going to be short on equipment, but when we unpause and the factory is allowed to run, the equipment is going to slowly start filling. So where do we want the Panzers? Well, I'm actually going to click on the capital, Brandenburg. Motorized division, I'm going to leave that for now. Here we got Special Forces, the Mountaineers. I'm just going to get one of those doing, and I'm going to limit it. Now you can see we're actually limited to 2 units. So if I have 1 unit done 3 times, that should be it. You can give priority as well. So let's say we want the Panzers to have high priority on the equipment. And so as stuff comes out the factory, these guys are going to get it first and then everybody else second. And then Cavalier. And I'll give those low priority. 3 lots of, let's say, 10 groups. Military, I'm going to add a bunch here as well. Let's say 6. And Panzer, I'll leave that as 1. Alright. Unassigned divisions, so that's everybody who's not yet commanded. So here we've got a group of SS motorized. I'm going to put them in with Bock. Now, who else we got? So if you click this once, it's going to just go through every guy. Or you can hold shift and click it and it's going to select every single one that is, again, unassigned because that's the icon. I'll tell you what, I'm going to select these guys that are here on this little bit. I'm going to put those into a new army. And I'm going to pick somebody that is not too overwhelming, but a nobody. So let's say this guy here. I'm going to get this guy by, again, so selecting this guy, pressing Z, he's going to hold the line there. Now, I could assign him to this Field Marshal, but I'm not going to, because remember, this Field Marshal is controlling the entire line and the attack here. Controlling this bit is going to throw him off. For now, I'm not going to give him a Field Marshal. He can be there. Now I'm going to select everybody else, so this is going to cover everybody that isn't here already holding the line here. I'm going to put all of those into a new group here. New division, you see that's 16 guys in total. And we'll give him General Erwin von Witzelben. And if you take a look, this guy's got an infantry modifier. And so they're going to get a lot more experience under this guy. And he's pretty good at attack as well. He's got a level 4 on the attack, which is right up there with the best of them, apart from Bock, who starts with 5. Now, as you use these guys throughout the war, let's say we use this guy to do a lot of attacking, of course his skill level on the attack is going to go up. As we scroll down, we see further down the list, the generals get worse and worse, and until they're all used. You can promote new guys, but again, that costs money and they're going to be crap anyway. I accidentally selected the wrong guy. He's better for paratroopers, but that's no harm, no foul. We can change it over to this guy. There we go. And again, to use these generals, they already work for you. It doesn't cost anything to get them there. All right. I'm going to do a be right back for 30 seconds. If you're watching this, just skip 30 seconds. All right. 30 seconds are up. Get rid of the music. I just needed a drink of water and... Alright, so these two guys are obviously not under a group, you know, commanded by a field marshal because we haven't told them to. In fact, this guy here doesn't have any orders at all. Now this here, the border with France. Now currently, as per the, I think it was a Treaty of Versailles, but whatever it was, see this little red bit, we are not allowed to put troops into this area. Now we're going to sort that out very soon. By here, that's it, the Rhineland. So the remilitarization may be reversed if you are confronted and back down. Well, we're not going to. So once this political thing is complete, we're going to be able to put troops here. So that's just, again, it's just an agreement that was done at the end of World War I that Germany weren't allowed to put troops there. And so until basically we decide to get rid of that agreement, we're going to have to comply with that. Now there is a little bit of a border here with France. Again, we're not going to war just now. This here being part of the Maginot Line. But just so we got bases covered, this guy was 16. Do you know what? I'm just going to pluck like, let's say 4 guys from him. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select the units that I want and I'm going to hold shift. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I did say shift was the only key. If there's one thing you learn about this video, it's the shift key. Lets you select more units at a time. So these 4 guys, and in order to pinch them from him, I'm just going to click here on new army with these 4 guys selected. Now look at that. Now he's only got 12 instead of 16, and we've got 4 guys here, and again without a leader. So we're going to look for someone, because these guys, at least initially, are going to have to be used for defense. I'm going to look for somebody that's got a higher skill level of defense, and maybe not so much on the attack, because this is, again, going to be used for defensive purposes. I think this guy here, because look, he's pretty low in every other regard, but he's a level 3 on defense, and he's also got an extra bonus point here for defense. So I'm going to get this guy, because you want to use your generals that are better overall, certainly on the better attack. You want to use those for attacking. So this guy here, I mean, he's not terrible, but he's, you know, he's level 2. he's not, you know, and your better ones are level 4. And eventually they will get higher than that even. So let's get this guy commanding these 4 guys. And if they're currently dotted around. And so again, Z key did say there was only 2 keys, Z and X, for your defense and your attack. So I'm going to hit Z for defense. And I'm going to click here. Now notice he is going to try and occupy the entire border with France. But because he can't go there yet, he won't. But let's see what happens. So let's click. I'm going to unpause. Let's speed up time a little bit. By the way, I'm speeding up time. You've got these plus and minuses here. It's the same on your numpad. You've got your plus minus, so you can use those. So there's one of his divisions down here. And here comes the other 3. Yeah, so you can see I'm going to hit pause now. He's automatically just covering this bit here because he knows he's not allowed there. I assume as soon as this restriction's lifted, the general's going to automatically reshuffle his guys to cover the front over its entirety. Now, you can modify it, but for now, let's leave it at that. And you can see there's a bunch of French soldiers. We've got artillery. We've got tanks. Certainly, the Maginot Line is not where you want to go attacking into France. And so we'll leave that there. And with that done, we've basically covered everything. We've got rid of all the notifications. We do got this to say there's some decisions available to cancel MIFO bills. I just ignore that, leave that running. Some of the other decisions that come along you certainly do not want to ignore, but this is one that you want to leave running. In order to fund your growing military and keep this a secret from the British and French eyes, we've been forced to use a balance sheet entity to route payments to in the form of promissory notes. If we do not use our political connections to extend the date of these notes, we will be forced to repay them and can no longer receive their benefits. And so make sure that you keep this going. Here we can see currently we've got 39 political power. That's that one. Now it's 42. And of course, because we're playing on easy, this number is going to accelerate quicker. In fact, you see there the modifiers in effect, one of them being the civilian difficulty, plus 50%. Now you need this to make decisions. And so if we come down here, let's say we want to add a political advisor. And let's say we want Schacht because he's good at captain of industry. See, we need 75 political power to get him. And for most of the others, we need 150. And so that. And as well to make laws. Where are we here? Like partial mobilization. Again, each one of these has effects. Here you've got exports. Now this is where those excess resources that go into the ether go. Exports. Now we can close the economy, so we don't, but it has worse effects. The best one to be in is free trade. If you look, everything, a lot of green there. But if you look what's not so good, civilian and naval intelligence to others. In other words, if you're at war, you maybe don't want to be exporting. Plus, by the way, you lose 80% of your goods as well. And so, but you build stuff quicker, you research stuff quicker, and so it's up to you. The more closed you are, you get to keep more stuff for yourself, but everything else goes a bit slower. And here you've got your conscription. Now, how many guys? So we've got from disarmed onwards. Currently, we're on limited. And during war, you know, it's about working your way up. Hopefully, you can get the war done as Germany by using service by requirement. If it gets over to the all-adult serve, you can see it starts to have negative impacts on other aspects of your country, which makes sense, right? You've got getting more people to in the army. There's less people at home to cover the essential at home, and that's reflected in what happens there. And scraping the barrel. Never been there. Alright, so let's unpause. And hit plus and hit plus. Things are going real fast. Oh, one aspect we didn't cover. We covered the ground guys. We covered the naval, the air. And so if we click this icon here, also F3. So you've got F1, F2 for your navy and F3 for your air. Here we see the Air Force. Now they changed this around a lot recently, so it's worth looking into this. If we click this airbase here, we can see that these guys are here. Now every wing or squadron of airplanes since this change is 100. There's nothing you can do about it. You used to be able to have any number that you wanted. Now everything is 100. So it's 100 fighters, 100 bombers, 100 combat air support, 100 strategic bombers, 100 transport, whatever. But the flip side of this is that all of these units that you start with are undersupplied. You see we've got 60 out of 100, 60 out of 100, 80 out of 100. And that's for that particular base. If we come over to this base, we can see it's even worse. And so the way around this, I would suggest selecting one of your little units, this guy, disband the air wings, what's going to happen is those 60 planes are going to go back into the central pool, and then they're going to be redistributed across, you know, your various squadrons. So if I unpause now, well, it looks like the fighters have gone elsewhere because he still says 60. If we come down here, well, now look, he's up at 100 and he was down before. And so I like to train my pilots. There's a lot of people that don't bother, but I just think it works out slightly better overall. So I'm going to get these guys and I'm going to send them all to the capital, Brandenburg. And so to do that, select the airbase. As long as you're in air mode, right? That's going to select every aircraft at that base. And then right click onto another airbase. And that's going to send them there. Now, if you misclick, so let's say these guys here, and you don't click on the base, but you end up, say, clicking there, they're actually going to fly over this area looking, well, in this case, they're not going to be looking for anything, but click that, they're now going to fly over here, and they're going to be looking for enemy boats to attack. Well, clearly there aren't any, because we're not at war, not yet. And so unselect that, and click here, hold air wings, and that's going to stop their order to fly over this place. There it goes. And then again, just make sure you click on the airbase. And you can see the orders given. Obviously, we're paused, but if I unpause, again, it's not an instantaneous thing. You know, the entire air wing's got to fly over, and they've got the support, you know, from the ground and whatnot. It's not just a case of moving the air, but so it does take a little bit of time. Although not too long. You can see it took about a day to move the entire lot over, so not bad at all. We got a couple of guys over here. Again, 46 out of 100, so I'm going to disband that one. And again, the equipment is going to be redistributed among everyone else that's short. And then we've got this one here, and I'm going to move those over to Brandenburg as well. And I think that's my lot. There we go. So if we come here, what I'm going to do, we've got one ace. So none of these squadrons have got an ace. There's an ace. Booby Hartman. Hartman, he wasn't even in, he didn't even join the Air Force until 42. So that's a bit of a mistake there, although he's the best fighter ace of all time anywhere in the world. 352 confirmed kills, that single guy. And lived to tell the tale, right? He actually got his final kill on the very last day of the war, Victory in Europe Day. So, to help just with these numbers, I'm going to disband this wing here that's only got 60 out of 100, and then that's going to restore Booby's wing and everybody else. You see, same problem here with some of these bombers. I think if I get rid of this one with 80, that's going to resupply most of the others. So let's unpause now. And we see we got all the fighters, and we're still a few bombers short. We get rid of this one with 60. We'll still be some short. You know what? We'll get rid of the one with 82. And now that's definitely going to be enough, I think. So let's delete. Unpause, speed up the game till the next day again. And there we go. All right, and we see there's a few short here. Now, as they roll out of the factory, clearly they'll be fixed. So we got a bunch of fighters here. We've only got one lot of combat air support, and so there's no others we can try and pull from. The same with the torpedo bombers, same with the transport aircraft. Transport aircraft, I'm going to pull out the way to a different airbase. I'm going to just park those in South Germany just so they're out the way. There we go. And now these lot, what I'm going to do is Booby Hartman. I've got to give him a better thing. Stop calling him Booby. That's how they... Anyway, whatever. And so this guy, going to give him training order, because we're going to use them for when the war breaks out in Spain, and we're going to help out. We're going to help out Spain. I may think, I don't care about the war in Spain. It's got nothing to do with me. Why would I want to help out? because the units that we send to fight will gain experience, and that experience will be invaluable to us when it's time to fight a bigger war. So we'll set this guy training, and he is the fighter guy. And with it, we want one lot of bombers. Now, these lot of bombers here, these tactical bombers, are going to be pretty good. And so I'm going to set those training as well. I'm going to leave everybody else as is for now, but this lot is going to be training. So when I unpause, we see the experience here. They're all novice. Excuse me. When I unpause, if I speed up time a bit, you can see there their experience level gaining. Of course, because the days are whizzing by and they're all training. That's going to use fuel, so don't have everybody training at once, at least not early on. You won't be able to afford it. And we're starting to get some news reports in here as well. Alright, back to the military map. Decisions available. It's just this. Now you could say, right, I don't want to hear about these MIFO things, so I'm going to unnotify here because I don't want to hear about it anymore. You can see now we've got enough political power to perform certain raids. I'm going to ignore that for now. Let's carry on. Now, we've got 100 political power. We can start to make some sort of a decision. In this case, we could hire a theorist. So if we click on that, click here to add theorist. We've got a few here. Now the guy I want here is Heinz Gurdian, Blitzkrieg theorist. Now you can see he's going to cost 200 political power. But the reason is, look at that. It's going to increase the maximum speed of basically tanks by 10%. And the cost of mobile warfare doctrines, which is the one that Germany goes for, you know, the whole Blitzkrieg thing, is going to be reduced by 15%. Now, these might seem like little modifiers, but when you think how much, for example, the speed of a tank, and you can add 10% onto every tank that you have, it suddenly becomes a big worthwhile thing. And again, each one of these guys has a particular thing that they're going to be good at. Excuse me. But so for now, I'm not going to go with any of these. We're just going to let the political power build up. So let's hit space. And now we hear that big loud ding. 3 dockyards become available. Remember that one boat that we were building, that big one that was almost done? And I'm going to guess it's finished and that the 2 dockyards have become available. And so what we're going to do with the 2 dockyards, I'm going to put them into this one here because it's almost finished. And so let's put them all. I'll tell you what, actually, there's only 1 sub left to be built here. If we put all the dockyards in there, I can see we've asked up to 10, but there's only 3 in totality. The 1 that was already there and the 2 from that finished ship. So there's going to be 3 lots building this one. However, when this sub finishes, these 3 are going to become complete. So if we go 10 here, there's only the 1 available. But when these 3 complete, they're going to come down here. So here's going to say 4 out of 10. Now, if we continue to do that, as these finish top to bottom, all the remaining dockyards are going to get moved over. And so all of these ships are going to finish at an ever increasing amount of speed. We'll do the same for the destroyers as well. And I think we'll leave the battleships alone. Alright, let's unpause. See there the date whizzing around. I've got it in max speed. Now we've got an exclamation mark here. Why? Because it's got no order assigned. So that's this guy here. Or you can select it on there. The reason the exclamation mark, just no order. So what it means by orders is we don't got a front line, or we're not defending an area, or we're not holding a line. If you want to defend an area, instead of drawing an entire line, you hit on this one here, area defense. You see it's the letter V. I don't use this enough to bother learning that it is a V, but if you've got a memory, you may wish to learn that shortcut. And then you just click on the areas that you want it to defend. So let's say we want to defend the capital area. And let's say, you know, towards the harbour areas here so the British don't land and start invading when we're not looking. So let's say we want this entire area to defend. Now you can see the general saying, well, it's going to cost you 45 divisions to defend that effectively. Well, you've only got 12. We're asking him to defend everything. So let's say, right, well, you don't need to defend the railway lines. So if we untick that, now you see, oh, well, I only need 22 guys then. Well, you also don't need to defend the air bases. Well, 19. What about the coastline? Well, we've got the harbours defended. We've got victory points. And we've got the forts. Those are the main ones. So you know what? Do away with the coastline as well. And what do you know? 12 divisions. I didn't plan that. That was just coincidence. Also, what we can do is get these guys training. Now, they're already vetted up. You see, they're experience level 3, so they're not going to get any higher from training. They will get higher if they're allowed to fight, but just from training alone, this is high as it gets. The reason I'm going to ask them to train regardless is because that's going to start building up our army experience. You see, currently it's 0. If we set this guy training by pressing this button here, because he's got the training icon, but he's also going to occupy this area. Now, if we come over to army experience, you see it's plus 0.024 daily, and that's from this guy training. And again, if we stop the training, we see daily experience gain is 0. Now, clearly, the more guys we got training, the more that's going to go up. And because I know that war is not going to break out straight away, what we could do is get this guy down here, get him training as well. Now, if we come over here, look at that. Now it's 0.03 per day. What about Bok? Training. Now, what is it? 0.48. I hope 0.048. So I hope you see there the pattern beginning to emerge. We'll get these guys training as well. The only reason I'm not going to get Heinz training is because he's got a bunch of Panzers. A, that's going to use a load of fuel versus just regular soldiers. And B, I don't have enough spare Panzer equipment that will break down over time during the training, so we'll be able to afford to replace it. Yes, we're going to occasionally lose the odd gun and the odd piece of artillery training these guys, but I'm able to make those much quicker than I am Panzers. And so for now, with this lot training, we're going to start gaining some experience. And really, you want to be doing this before you even hit unpause for the first time. Now you can see soldiers there moving into position. And now, with our political power shooting beyond 150, we can finally modify the government. And so it's debatable what's the first thing to do. I'm going to come over to political advisor, and if we come over here to Martin Bormann, you can see having this guy in is going to give us an additional 15% political power. And so this thing up here is going to carry on increasing, but by an additional 15% per day. So you see currently it's 2.43 per day. Let's hire this guy, 15% modifier. Come over here. Now it's 2.73 per day. And so that is a significant difference. That's going to let us do more stuff even quicker as time goes on. So let's unpause. Every time something comes up, I always hit space to see. So we've completed our remill of the Rhineland. So we'll click OK. And now this guy should be able to stretch across. There we can see the national focus of the Rhineland is completed. So we'll hit OK. And what do you know? Because we've completed it, there's now no focus set. There you can see it's completed. So that now unlocks. We can go down this end. We can get either of these, or we can go that way. Now we can't yet do the Anschluss. So that's Germany, you know, joining back up again with Austria. Of course, they used to be one country back in the day. The reason we can't do it, if you take a look, yes, the German Reich is fully independent. Yes, we've completed the Rhineland, but no, we don't have at least 500,000 in the army. If you want to know how many you've got in the army, come over here. And yeah, we've got 1.22 that is available in the millions. But then the army, you see, we've only got 386, of which half of those, 117,000, are in training. 269 are currently trained up regulars, if you like. And here it's saying you need 500,000 in the field. So we need to double that. And so we can't do that. So we're going to pick one of the other ones. And I suggest 4-year plan because this is going to help with our industry. And as I've said, that's kind of the side you want to do first. The only reason I do this before the industry is for the political power. Now we can also do naval rearmament here. That's going to add more dockyards on. You can also build them, but this is even quicker than building them. And so it's certainly something that I don't want to neglect. A lot of players do, but if you take a look, most of these take 70 days each. This one takes 35, so it's twice as quick. And this one here, 35, and you see that adds up even more. And you see it also gives you some research bonuses for technology and for naval technology. But for now, let's go with a 4-year plan. And this is also what we need to be able to hire Schacht, you know, the guy that's going to let us build factories quicker. If we come over, political advisor, this guy here, captain of industry, is going to give us a bunch of 10% bonuses. You can see we have not yet completed the 4-year plan. Now, every country is going to have a slightly different technology tree, different characters, each bringing different things to the table, and different add-ons as well. You know, when I enable all my add-ons, it looks a bit different than this again. Just adds more things, more buttons. Now, what we got here, modify government. Once again, we're through the 150 mark, and so we're not yet able to get Schacht because we're a ways off there. And so let's look at something else that's going to be useful. Come over to the industrial concern one. We got these guys. These are going to help with our research. Look at that, the speed. So you can have increased electronics, which is going to be things like your radar and stuff. Industrial. Well, this one is a little bit of industry and your synthetic resources. That's going to be your oil. Remember, Germany didn't have any oil. They synthesized all their oil from things like coal. And so I would suggest one of these two at the top. I like to flip a coin, and then if it's heads, I go this one, and tails this one. So I'm going to flip a coin right now. And if you believe that I just done that, I also got a bridge to sell you somewhere, but let's go with this one. And yeah, I do vary. I don't think it really matters too much because both of those are things that we really need. All right, so our first piece of research is completed, the electronical mechanical engineering. So we hit OK. We now get this button. Why? Because we've got one slot not in use, this one. And again, if I unpause and allow this to fill, I'm not wasting time researching. All the days that go here will be dumped into the research. But if it reaches the end, then it's wasting time. So I'm going to pause it there and I'm going to select. So this was the one that's complete. And now it's obviously unlocked the rest of the focus tree. Again, you can't skip it because we haven't done the one above it, but at least it's been unlocked. Now this side, mechanical computing, if you take a look, the effect is going to give us increased research speed by 4%. And that's for everything forever. And so you don't want to wait until you've done everything else before doing this. You want to do it the other way around. And so we'll start with that. So it's going to take 200 days to do, just shy. And that's in. So let's unpause. You can see there we're currently 18th of April 1936. And now it's the 24th. So at full speed, until you get everybody is at war and the computer's got a lot to think about, you're going to be able to, you know, go through time like this, like a day taking a second, even quicker. All right, we've got basic machine tools. I'm going to pause again. We'll hit OK. We see interwar artillery. It's only a couple of days off. So coming over to this one, I'm going to get the radios next. You can see the radio has an effect of increased coordination and increased reinforce rate. Makes sense, right? You get on the radio, hey, we need backup, that kind of thing. Hey, we need some extra guys. hey, we're low on ammo, whatever. So it makes sense that having a radio is going to help with sorting all that out. And so we'll agree with that. Now, a couple of political power away from making another change. So when I unpause, that's going to be very quick. Let's have a look at the state of equipment. So if we come over to the logistics page here, you can see we're still low on artillery, 22. And if you remember, the reason was because we got all these things recruiting and we didn't have enough. Those factories have been running now for about 3 or 4 months since the start of the game. And so we've been able to produce almost everything. So again, if we hover over, we see this unit is 99% equipped. And if we look through, he's only actually missing 6 pieces of support equipment, but is otherwise okay. This guy here, similar story. Come over to the Panzer guy. And you can see, because he's given max priority, he's gotten everything he needs. Infantry, trucks, support, artillery. He's first in line for all of that. The thing that he is short of is the light tanks, because he's the only guy after light tanks and there aren't any more available. You can see there's 152. He needs 240, and so that's just a case of waiting for those. These mountain troops, well, they've got everything. They just need 6,000 guys and 840 pieces of equipment, which is basically the guns. I mean, what everybody else is doing out of the 6,000 when only 800 are holding a gun, I have no idea. But it is what it is. And then these guys, and they were given the lowest priority. You see, you've almost got nothing. They've got all the people in place, 4,800, but in terms of equipment, very, very little. The horses are not counted somehow as equipment, but they basically come for free. All right. Let's unpause. In fact, let's repause. Let's come over to the aircraft menu and let's take a look. How's our training doing? Well, look at this. They're almost done. So if we unpause, I'm just going to wait for this to fill. There we go. Pause. There is nothing gained now by keeping this particular wing training, because again, this is as far as they can get until they get into combat. So I'm going to stop their training and I'm going to move this guy down here. And I'm going to do the same with this one. So I'm going to select the tactical bomber, stop the training and move it down here. And that's so that these two guys, or these two wings, are ready to go down into Spain once that battle starts. And again, this is the advantage of having the AI following historical precedent. You kind of know what to expect, where and when, up to a point. What I may also do is just get a couple of these other ones training. In fact, we may get 3 of them training. There we go. So these 3 that are not yet done. Again, I held shift to select them, started the training, and now when we unpause, there we see these 2 have gone down here and the rest have begun. Now we've got a few more things, so let's pause and deal with this. This is not a game you can play on max speed, by the way. Looks like our first lot of troops that were training have come out. They've got everything ready, so they'll come out once A, they've got all the equipment, and B, that they're trained. You can force them out early, but then they won't be ready to fight. Here you see that they're trained, and you've seen what they're like. If they're not ready, they've got that little beginner's icon. Coming over to the Navy guy, remember we had these lot training. And look at that, they're fully vetted up. So again, nothing to gain by keeping those lot training. So we'll stop that group. What about this group? Notice they're not training. Well, they've got the icon to train. So why are they not training? The answer is because they're in for repair. We've got this guy here. They will go into repair as a group. They will go out and do whatever mission as a group. Unless you enable this icon here, automatic split off, and what that'll do is it'll say, right, us lot are going to stay doing whatever, but you're damaged, so you break off and go home. Obviously, if ships are breaking off to go home, that leaves them vulnerable to getting picked off. And so use this, you know, clever. If you're near your base anyway, fine. If you're further away, you know, use common sense. You've got your priority here, and so how eager are they to go and repair. I suggest, especially as Germany, leaving that on high because you're going to struggle for navies, certainly in the early stages of the game. You've got an icon to say, how likely are you to engage with the enemy? Engage at medium risk. Again, at Germany, you're going to get wiped out. I like to go with engage at low risk. Now, you can turn that up later on as you ramp up your production, but early on, the worst thing that can happen is you get your navy wiped out and then you're unable to even defend. You know, you want to, if nothing else, just defend your coastline as Germany. And then as an added bonus in the first year or so of the war, have a few subs out here. And the way that you're going to be able to preserve that is to engage at low priority. I'll select this guy and select all of these to low. That's going to get every group under him. I'm going to do the same over here. Engage at low risk. I'm also going to tick this one. Click to enable automatic reinforcement. So what that does, if one of these ships gets killed, if another one comes out the factory of the same type, so if we lose a destroyer and we only got 3 left, there's another one rolling off at the dockyards. That one rolling off will automatically come over here to reinforce. If you don't tick that, the ships will simply start dwindling. So I don't see any reason why not to have that enabled. And again, the automatic split off. Well, these guys are near home, so I'm going to make sure that's ticked. This guy, at least for now, will have automatic split enabled because we're not at war. And that means when these guys are training, if one of them damages, well, that one come home to repair. Doesn't need everybody to stop training and trundle home together. And we'll have the automatic reinforcement. Now, another thing you can do with this selected, if we come over to this group that's still training, you see in total is 6. Well, I want there to be 20 submarines in this group. Well, we've only got 6, we know that, and it's out of 20. We're going to hit OK. And because automatic reinforcement is enabled, as and when new submarines get produced, they're automatically going to get sent out to this particular group until it's got 20. They're going to come out complete beginners, and so if we have this group training, they'll be trained along with it. Now let's deal with some of these other options. We've got more unassigned divisions. I'm going to hold shift and click that. Turns out there's actually 2 divisions that are off, been produced, that are not currently assigned. I'm going to right click onto Bok. He's already training. That's going to get these 2 guys joining Bok's division. Bok's covering the line here with Poland, so we'll expect those to join Bok there and continue with training, so that's fine. Yet another national focus is complete, the 4-year plan. That means we can get Schacht. So I'm going to continue on down here. My aim is to go along the right side here until we get the extra research slot unlocked. Clearly we're in easy civilian mode, so all of this is happening much quicker than it would normally because of all those modifiers that help make the game easier, but that's fine. When you're learning the mechanics of the game, this is the way to go. So let's click that one. Okay. Yet more unassigned divisions in that little moment we unpaused, so shift click. You can see there we're starting to get some army experience. Remember that was 0. We've now got 9. Where shall we put this guy? Well, if you remember, this one here was covering the line down here. So I'm going to right click these guys. And so instead of 4 guys, he's now got 6 of 6 divisions. Come over here to the research slot. Let's have a look. Well, we don't yet have any anti-tank. We could research that. Let's see if there's anything more suitable. Now look at this, we've got 100%. That means anything here has got a research bonus of 100%. In other words, it's going to happen twice as fast. I suggest when you get big bonuses like this, you put them on a thing that is more expensive because it makes sense. If you get a 100% research bonus and it takes something 50 days to do, that's going to get knocked down to 25. But if something takes, say, 100 days to do, that's going to get knocked down to 50. In other words, the longer the thing is to research, the more days are saved when you've got like 100%, which makes obvious. So say over here, oil research, 108 days. Rubber, 108. This one, 195. so we get more of a net gain there. Now, yeah, it's almost half a year just over ahead of time, so we're going to get a little bit of a penalty, but I think it's worth it. So I'm going to click that. Okay. Again, because of the 100%. Modify government, political advisor. We're going to get this guy, Shachtu, we've covered before. Because look, he's going to make stuff build faster. And early on, well, the entire game really, you need to build stuff. But the earlier you can get stuff built quicker, the better. Okay. Now what we got? Military Corps. We can now recruit because we've got enough. Not just some theory guys, but Chief of Army, Air Force, Navy, as well as Military High Command. Here's Military High Command. You can have 3 guys. There's a bunch to choose from, and these can be hired together. Theorist, you can only have 1. So these guys are also going to bring benefits. So for example, this guy here, division recovery rate plus 8%. This guy here, infantry division attack plus 10, defense plus 15. So he's a good one for your army. You've got different ones here like for navy. I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit. All right, so here we've got Chief of Air. Army, Navy, and Air. Here you're going to have your Hermann Goering guy. And so he's a good one to go for Air. You can see we're going to get more experience per day, plus a 10% gain in air superiority. Navy. I like this guy just because I think the extra cost there for convoy raiding bonus is not worth it. Whereas here we get a few advantages with the surface fleet, and it's cheaper. And then you've got your army guy here, and again a bunch of different advantages. I quite like this one here, where we get army experience gain plus division attack. So that's all your divisions that are attack. This one up here with your infantry is only your infantry. But again, these combine. So if we got this guy, the infantry is going to be plus 10. Now if we get this guy, because infantry is part of a division, you can have plus 10 in its own right, plus another 10 for being a division. And so for now, I'm thinking I'm going to go with this guy. Army Logistics. Division attrition -8. In other words, equipment that falls by the wayside is going to be reduced by 8% because this guy knows what he's doing when it comes to fixing stuff that's getting worn out, I guess. I don't know. But in any case, -8%. You have a big army and 8% less stuff gets lost. That's a big bonus, especially when you've got extended front lines. And so that's a good one to start with. And of course, that starts right away, so including from training on out. All right, we'll pause there. We can see Italy has done its little thing in Ethiopia, of course. Italy was active over here in the early parts. Britain's going to deal with that. You may want to help them, you may not. I find it a distraction, but if you want to play historically, you know, Germany and Rommel specifically got very active in North Africa. What a disaster that turned out to be in the end. But it was some fascinating stories from back there. In any case, while it's paused, we'll go through this. Currently June 36, Ethiopia capitulated. Okay. Decisions are available. I'm going to ignore those. And unassigned divisions. Let's get these underway. Excuse me while I have a drink. And the thing is, this game's so complicated. These videos that say, oh, complete beginner's guide in 10 minutes, and you can't do it. Sure, you can say, oh, this button does this button does this, but I watched those. I didn't find that helpful. To me, I needed one video that went over a little bit of everything in a bit more detail, even though it took time, and that's why this is. Alright, so shift click these guys. Looks like just the one infantry. Who are we going to put in with? I'll tell you what, we'll put him in with Bok, and just so that he's got a nice round number of 10. Now, Poland's obviously had time to reinforce. You can see the general here, again, he's covering the Field Marshal is covering the entire front line. And you can see he is not very confident of the situation. Research complete, construction. Great. Alright, now we've got another 100% bonus. Now here you got a couple of options on industry. You can either follow this tree or this tree. And it's concentrated versus dispersed. Now as Germany, we're going to get bombed. No two ways about it. And because of that, dispersed industry is the way to go. If you take a look at that, the factory bomb vulnerability is increased, if you like, or the ability to get attacked is reduced by 15% because you've not got all your eggs in one basket, basically. The flip side, if you take a look, factory output over here is increased by 15. This one, it's only increased by 10. But in my opinion, the other bonuses more than outweigh that 5% benefit. And so we'll go down this side. Again, making use of that 100% now. Because if we look here, this one's slightly ahead of time and this one's only 90 days. So it's not really a dead loss, is it? But and this one 111. But that's only because they're ahead of time. And so I'm going to go with this one. Not least it's behind. We want to get those on the boil right away. More unassigned, so shift click. And I'm going to give this to these guys. I'm thinking maybe 10 divisions is enough for this guy to hold the line. Again, providing you don't just give him nothingness. Let's unpause. In fact, just before we do, let's have a quick look at the air. Here we see these guys are almost finished being novice. And they're up to the trained. Now they can carry on training. I'd be happy to send these guys into battle. But at this stage where there is no battle, I see no reason not to continue them up until they get that silver level. And while they're training, let's get this guy going. You see, we've got enough combat air support now, the Stukas. And so what you could do to get another wing, because there's planes somewhere that are just not being used. The easiest way, there's somewhere to copy. Where is it? It must be this one. Split the selected air wings in two. Yeah, there you go. So there's 50 and 50. And there you can see there was enough for 56 and 51. So they're going to increase to 100. That wasn't the best way to do it. I think the best way is actually just to add a new air wing and select here. In fact, good time. Look at this. We've got 146 fighters spare. So let's click it once. Okay. Now, where are these new fighters? There they are. They're still deploying. So if we unpause and pause, that's that new lot of fighters. They've now got all the equipment and all the air crew. We can see they're still rookie. So let's get those training as well. In fact, let's get all the ones that are not in training that need it training. With the exception of the Navy guy, because we've not got enough planes to make the 100. Let's quit there. What we got here? Modify government. Because we've got over 150. Material designer. So this is going to increase your artillery, your weapons and equipment, motorization. Let's go for weapons and equipment. No, let's go artillery. There we go. Some pause. Pause. All right, so we're getting on the way. Let's go for the Hermann Goering worker. So take a look at that. It's going to add more civilian factories, 6 in total. Unassigned divisions. So one of our Panzer divisions has rolled off. And I'm not going to put him with this guy because he's the one I'm hoping to send to Spain once that conflict kicks off. So I'm actually going to give these tanks over to... I don't want to go on the Maggio line because that would be a waste. Who's in charge over here? It's this guy. Let's give him over to him. And look, so they're going to go to port and ferried in. Super fast. Modify Officer Corps. Oh, we've got enough to get this guy. Anti-sub specialist. Not worth it in my opinion, and that's why it's so cheap. Alright, the Olympic Games, Berlin, Germany. 19th summer 36, and we've got 3 dockyards because all of those ships have completed. This here is your repair queue for your navy. So if we click here, we've currently got 3 docks dedicated to repair. Now when they're not repairing, they will work on building new stuff. I just suggest increasing this because once war starts, 3 dockyards ain't going to be enough. So if we increase that to 8, that is going to allow 8 dockyards to work on repair. And again, it's not as if they only do that. When they're not repairing, they'll work on building stuff. Speaking of building stuff, let's add for a new ship. Now, these are 2 battleships currently under construction. Looks like we do got some surplus chromium, so I am going to... This one here, I mean, look at that. Not estimated to be finished until May 45. This one, March 1947. We put another factory on there. Now it's 2nd of Jan 41. Put a 3rd one. Now it's 18th of July 39. We've got 1 chromium left. So if we put the 4th factory on there, it's actually going to be finished 25th of October 38. So that's going to be ready in time for war. I see no reason why not to ensure that happens. We've still got a bunch of remaining dockyards. In fact, we've got 5 left. I'm going to use that. I'm going to put 3 of them on making submarines and we'll set that to repeat ad nauseum. And come over here to the destroyers and the remaining 2. Now we could create a variant. Oh yeah, it's different to the ones, so... But it's going to cost you naval experience to do so. So you see here, blue, we got 22. If we say want more on engines, it's actually going to cost us 25 experience points to make that change. You can see it increases max range as well as max speed. Each one of these, there you've got your anti-submarine capabilities. You can see to add that is going to reduce its torpedo attack, increase depth charge and increase sub protection. Anti-air increases its anti-air, but look at that. Now we're starting to lose on max speed. If we increase our abilities to attack on torpedoes, maximum speed reduced even further. And so all of these come at a cost of increased experience as well as in other ways sometimes. And if you take a look, that's now harming the maximum range. So for now, just get the regular guy that we've already done, and that's all our dockyards in use. Again, as we build more or unlock more, more will become available. Let's unpause and continue. Alright, another decision as we go through 150. Modify government. So here we got tank designer, ship designer, and aircraft designer. What these do is change attributes overall. So for example, we come over to tank designer, we got 3 guys. Man, it's going to increase the research speed by 15%. It's going to increase the reliability of tanks by 5 and the soft attack by 5. So again, tanks going after soldiers basically. Come over to Porsche, get that same 15% bonus, but this one is going to give us a bit bonus of 5 when it comes to attacking other tanks and hard attacks. So in other words, tanks and tanks all round. And then Henschel, we've got 5% bonus on max speed and a 10% bonus on tank reliability. Reliability matters on tanks. It sounds obvious, but the higher the reliability is, the less likely it is that you're going to lose a tank to attrition. In other words, a column of 100 tanks going down the road, you're on the front lines somewhere, and one of them breaks down, that tank is basically lost. So more reliability is going to reduce the chance of that happening. So that is as important, if you like, as being able to attack stuff. I like to go with this one, the max speed and the reliability, and then we can go after soft or hard. A lot of players suggest if you single player, go for the soft attack, and if you multiplayer, go for the hard attack. I'm going to go for the reliability. Alright, research, the dispersed industry is done, so let's come over here. Now you can see all our bonuses have expired apart from this one, so this must have its own independent one. So I'm going to use that one, because why not? It's 100%. And excavation, you see there, resource gain efficiency plus 10. So in other words, all your places that we've seen that make steel, that make, aluminium, whatever it is, this is going to be able to get more out of the same piece of ground. Again, it's like newer technology, bigger mining equipment, bigger drills, whatever it is, gets more of it out. And so we'll research that stuff. All right, we've got yet another division or 3 that are ready. Now you can see this Field Marshal here is very happy with his prospect here on the Polish line. And I'm going to give an infantry guy to him. And actually give him 2. And then that third special forces one, I'm going to give down to him here. And I have 10 guys on that Maggio line. Now the radio's ready. And once the radio is unlocked, you can come down over to the support companies, and that unlocks this one here, the signal company. So you need the radio to have that. And these are good to have on your armoured divisions, and they basically enable your tanks to attack for longer when they're punching through the front line. And so, it's very important to have this, if possible, there. And so that's what we'll go with. Again, you need the radio first. Alright, yet another national focus. So we're working our way down. So KDF Wagon, that again adds 6 more civ factories. And now, because of those additional civilian factories that were unlocked, we've got some available for free. So now we got 15 building factories here. We got 15 building factories here. And how many we got available? 1. Is it? Is it 1? 42 out of 43. And so we can use that one factory to start something else. I'm going to start. I feel like we need 2 military factories just to start working on those planes that we didn't have enough of. If you remember, if we come down to the production, we're short on 2 factories. We need one here for transport planes. We need another one for naval bombers. So I'm just going to get those 2 military factories done. Down here, 80%. I suggest not building military factories, A, on the coastline, because that's where you want your docks, and B, near to the UK, unless you plan on wiping the UK out right away, because they're going to be sending bombers over, and the more they bomb your factories, the slower the production is going to be. And so I'd put your military stuff a little further away. You know you're going to wipe out Poland first if you're going by historicals. The reason I would suggest not building factories on this line first, if we take a look at the infrastructure on the roads, it's only 60%. That's going to make everything there slower. So I'd look at upgrading the infrastructure there before you start building factories. So I'd stick with the 80% areas for now. And so I'll just put them all there. I'll build 4 of them. Now, once these are done, it's going to free up more factories. And so I'm going to queue up even more civilian factories. And I'll queue them all with Hessen and Westfalen. There we go. So you can see there's currently nobody working on them yet. But once these are complete, these 15 factories building here will come down. Plus the 2 additional factories that they're building. So once these are done, we'll get the 15 factories that are building there, as well as 2 more that are being made. So there'll actually be 17 that cascade down. The same happening here. There's 15 being used to build 5 factories. And so when all that is said and done, there'll be 15 plus 5 or 20 factories moving down the list. And again, you want to keep the stuff here so you don't got factories idling doing nothing. And they don't got just build factories. You can build here synthetic refineries, fuel tanks, supply hubs, improve your railways, land forts. Obviously, you've got your naval bases and your dockyards. But as well, air bases, anti-air, and when we unlock it, radar stations, as well as your infrastructure. And we did say we wanted to improve the infrastructure over here. So if we click on the infrastructure button there, just showing you how to do it. So come over to your construction page, infrastructure. Just going to up these ones to level 5 because there's a lot of factories that can be built here. So 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5. And then once that's done, and again, stuff adds onto the bottom of the list, you can reorder the queue. Just click and move it to where you want if you want it to be higher priority. Let's unpause. Just give it a few days. All right, so how many one lot of new division? All right, well, we'll send those down there. And now he's got the 10 divisions that I wanted. I just want to check in on the aircraft. How are we doing here? And we can see this guy is ready. So we'll stop his training. And I'll move him somewhere ready. I'm going to move him over to West Germany so that when the war kicks off, he can defend some of Western Germany. This guy here is done. He's a tactical bomber. Well, we know Poland's going to be first. So I'm going to put these on the line there with Poland. This guy's ready as well. We'll put those over on our base over to the north of Poland. This guy, although he's ready, he's got nowhere near enough aircraft. And so we'll leave that training continuing. And is there anybody else sat there not doing anything? Well, only this guy. You know what? Let's get him going. Even though he doesn't have enough. Let's come over to the naval menu, see how these guys are doing. So our submarine guy, you see he's got a bunch more subs now. We asked for 20. So far, 15 have been supplied, another 5 to go. This one here, well, these guys are already trained. We will also get 20 on this guy, but we're just going to do one at a time. These guys are just on strike force. Now, we're not at war, so they're never going to do anything. But look at this particular group, the first group of 12 ships total. These are all on the novice. I want these training, but because these are big ships, they're going to use so much fuel. So currently, our fuel consumption is as such, it reckons we're going to have no fuel left in 1 year. Watch how that changes when I set these guys training. Now I'm going to unpause. Look at that, 330 days, and we've got the 3 down chevrons, so look at that. We're currently using 344 lots of fuel a day on the Navy, 364 on the air, another 148 in the Army. But we're only, where does it say? We're only gaining 48 and 158 fuel total. So total is 206. So there's a massive deficit there. We're using about 4 times more fuel than what we're gaining. And you can trade for fuel, and it looks like we're going to have to do that because I want these guys. Let's come back over to the research. If no, it's still slightly ahead of time, let's have a look, see if there's anything else. We could research radar. I'm going to get this basic weapons equipment done. All right, let's carry on. This war's got to be kicking off in Spain soon. Got yet another decision. Leave all of that. Let's come over here. Modify government. Let's have a look at these bottom ones. So we've got Chief of Army, Navy and Air Force. Oh, we did look at them before, didn't we? And again, I would go for the Army Offense one. Who are we actually Air experience. Well, that's going to come once we get to war. I think Army is going to be an important one. So I'm going to go with the offensive guy. Let's just have a look actually what else on the political side. War industrialist. He is important when we go all out on creating war factories, but we're not quite there yet. Add Theorist, Heinz. Well, I need another. Do you know what? Let's get him. So I'll unpause, let political power build to 200, and then we'll just get him and that'll be done. Let's select this guy and over there. Pause. We've got 201. Where were we? Theorist, Heinz Guardian. There we go. Alright, so that fuel refining has been complete. Let's have a look what's that done. So if you take a look, daily gain is now 235. Remember it was nearer 200 before. So we've got an increase of about, what's that, about 10, 15%, something like that. Well, fuel is going to be a shortage. You see, we're about, well, less than 10th of a year. We're about a month ahead of time, and that makes sense. Take a look. It's currently 4th of December. I guarantee you that'll be on time once it's January the 1st. Let's get that going. And we need to build some more fuel refineries soon anyway. Alright, excavation technology has been unlocked. So I've always wondered, does that help with fuel? Yes, it does. Look at that. We're now gaining 298 fuel. I never actually knew that excavation helps with fuel, but it does make sense. Alright, construction 2. Look at that. We're only like a couple of weeks ahead of time. It's going to take 155 days. I'm going to get that on the go. KDF wagon, and so now we can start researching the extra slot. That's going to give us even more building slots. Come over here, just one more unassigned division. Let's give that once again over here. Where's this war in Spain? Event or decision timeout. Leave all that as is. I'm just going to untick these options so we don't keep getting told about it. And propaganda efforts, we'll take a look at that. We need more world tension. Okay, so we'll be informed about that when it's ready. All right. The Spanish Civil War. Here we go. So this is what we want to do. Okay. Now you can send 2 divisions right away, but you need to have more than a certain amount of divisions on the field. So again, that's these guys. So we've got 3 divisions there. We've got, what we got there, 8 divisions there, and then so on. I've forgotten what the limit is. And so let's see. So we want to send Heinz Guardian into Spain with his tanks so we can start getting extra experience there. I also want to send, come over to the Air Force, these guys. And so if we come to the F1, we want to help nationalist Spain, which is the darker colour, not the Republican Spain. And then they're going to maybe help us later on by allowing us to dock on their ports and use them to refuel and so on, which is going to be essential, especially early on in the war when France is still, you know, France. And so let's right click here and we're going to send volunteers. Again, here we can see we are able to send 3. And again, that's because we've been recruiting army the whole time. And so we're going to send Heinz Guardian in with these 3 tanks. There used to be a send Air Force button. Again, is that because I'm using different modules? I do want to be able to send air. Maybe that's just automatic now. Let's have a look. So he is now going to be sent in. So if I slow the speed down and unpause. So they've allowed it. And so now Heinz disappears from this menu because he's currently on the way. Let me see if I can send air just by itself. So if I click this. Apparently not. Can I bomb from long range? Let's try that. I'm going to change from no retreat just to normal operations. Close air support, and I'm just going to click in that area. I'm going to unpause. And are these guys now taking... I'll just set the other guys to work with Heinz, I think. We'll see if that pans out. Let's see. Again, this is slightly different because I play with all the mods enabled. So it's going to take a little bit of time. It's usually 2 or 3 days for him to get there. So we'll just power through that time. Sounds like it's bad weather here. The weather does have impact on certain aspects of battle. For example, you know, aircraft are less able to do well in bad weather. Insufficient resources. So our 2 factories have come on and you can see we're short on rubber. But actually we've got an excessive amount of tungsten. So we're actually sending everything that a factory is making over to Sweden for 8 tungsten. But we don't need them. So I'm going to reduce that to 0. It's either, you know, 0 or 1, and that's always going to give 8. I'm thinking, do I want to trade for more rubber? So I'm going to lose that entire factory for 2 pieces of rubber, or do I want to keep the factory to help building more others quickly? Well, I think actually I'm going to go for the extra pieces of rubber. That's going to bring that into line, and instead, if we come over to the production menu, I'm going to make sure we don't waste that rubber by saying, right, I want more fighters, so let's go for 5. I'm also going to hit this ×5 button. And there's still 5 factories there, but it's just... because if you have that ticked, that there is 15. But if we times it by 5, each one of these is now 5 factories. It's just an easier way to have more factories doing the same thing. So let's have 5 doing the fighters. Have 1 more on close air support, 1 more on tactical bomber, and 1 more on naval bomber. I think that'll about spend the rubber. But of course these factories don't yet exist. We see there's currently 3 being built, so let's ask for... one there and 1 in Rhineland. And I'm going to move these up to a higher priority. I don't want to cut across anything that's already started, but I'm going to move them there. And so once this is done, they're going to come first before Westfalen, and then eventually the roads over here. All right, let's unpause. And our guy's got to be showing up over here. And there he goes. And so the 3 divisions are here. And if we come, can't see them. And this is something that continues to, in some ways, bother me to this day. The various theatres. So we've got German theatre here. If we select these guys... now we can control the Spanish lot. Now, if we start clicking over here, it's going to start messing stuff up. So make sure you click in the area. I like to play every war as 1 theatre. I know it does Spanish automatically opens a second. You can just go to different parts of the map and keep setting up new theatres, and then quickly go to different parts of the map, seeing different units. And so you can see, for example, all of our ground units disappear apart from this guy, because he's the only one that's operating in the Spanish theatre. If we hit escape, come over to the German lot, now it's only going to select these guys that are here. Now, I'm sure it's a lot easier way to manage stuff doing it that way. Personally, it never worked for me. I keep, you know, even when I'm fighting Russia over here, the UK here, I'm doing stuff down here and across here. I just have it all in one. I don't know why. Anyway. Spanish guys, Heinz, you can see he, as the general, is not yet there. That's why his picture's in black and white. but his soldiers are. What that means is the benefits that he gives by being to his soldiers, you know, those modifiers. Take a look at his picture. All of these modifiers are not going to apply until he arrives. But that doesn't mean we can't get them into position. And so like before, we can see here we're working with Nationalist Spain. So we want to take out these lighter areas that represent Republican Spain. You can see these guys are already hard at fighting. I'm simply going to hold Z, and rather than click in to give this entire line like that, I just want part of it. So I'm going to right click to delete the entire thing. I'm going to click on the army again. I'm going to press Z like before, but instead of left clicking this line, I'm going to right click drag a line. So I'm going to start at the very end, right click, hold down the right button, and I'm going to drag a line. And I think there, just because it's green, I'm going to let go. And now these tanks are going to form a front line just there. They're not going to extend along the whole front. And then their plans, so before I even unpause, I'm going to press X. Remember, Z and X, the only two keys you need on this game. Z to draw a defense or a front line, and X to draw an attack line. So you need your front line first. That's where your troops are going to go and line up, and then you need where they're going to attack. So I'm going to press X. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to drag, and I'm going to say from there to here. So right click, drag. That's going to be a decent sort of move for these guys. All right, let's slow time down a tad and unpause. So we can see they've got their orders already. Tanks move quite slowly through trees and forested areas, so just be aware of that. And we're going to wait A for them to get into position and B for Heinz to turn up. Now something else, you see this little flashing blue icon by Heinz, the plus sign? That means he's got a trait ready to be handed to him if we want. So if we click on that, here we can see there's a few of them. One of them is Panzer Expert. And we can see if we were to give him that, well, look at that. 10% extra defense, increased chance of executing blitz and encirclement tactics. Well, that sounds good to me. And we're going to lose 15 command power when doing so. This one here is command power. You see, we've currently got 100. It's going to cost 15. This keeps refilling, by the way, so I think that's fine. So let's assign that. Okay. And now he's not got any more things that we can assign to him, and until he next earns a spot for one. So let's come away. He's still not in colour. You see, he is still getting there. Now he's there. Now he sees in colour. And so let's get these guys attacking. So to get the attack going, you've got your front line. You've got your plan what they're going to do. You hit this one here to activate. And now Heinz is going to tell him, guys, get fighting. Now here you can tell him, be very cautious, go normal, or be real aggressive. Unless there's a reason to, stick with normal. Because aggressive, you're going to lose people and equipment. If you're trying to get a battle done quickly, sometimes it's better to go aggressive just to get it over and done with, even though it comes at increased losses. Carefully, they're never really going to get anywhere unless they're completely overwhelming. And so you probably end up losing more just because of the time it takes if you go real careful. So again, balanced is the way to go. Sometimes if I've got a real long front line, it's running thin, I'm short on supplies. Sometimes I'll go careful just to keep it going while I've got more time to get stuff, reinforcements in. As this battle's taking place, you can see these green lines here indicating like a percentage of how much is this battle complete. So it's about 87%. The number will go up and down depending on exactly who's fighting, who's reinforcing, and what's going where. And you can even click on the icon and it's going to give you some additional information. So if we pause here, Heinz is our guy. Here's the enemy, and you can see Heinz, he's got his 2 Panzers. We've got another Panzer division here in reserve. You can also see some of the Spanish guys we're fighting alongside with here. And all together, well, look at that. We've got a much higher skill level than this guy, just 1. And there you can see who we're against. You can see some of the stats, and in terms of attack and defense, I mean, these guys ain't got a chance. It's just a matter of whittling them down. So let's come away and unpause. In fact, I did want air in, and let's see if we can do this. So if we come over to the air page, I'm going to click on the fighter wing here, which is currently not doing anything. Can I get him to come over here? So if we tick on air superiority, can't even seem to land him on friendly. Okay, come over now. Let's come back here. Let's see if I can do this. There is some convoluted way, I'm sure. Air, there we go. So with this guy on screen and air selected, select him, get him on air superiority mode. Now right click this wing onto Heinz. And what that's going to do is place this air wing, these fighters, under Heinz's control, and he's going to move them around as he sees fit. I'm going to do the same with the bombers. So I'm going to stop doing what they're doing. They're on combat air support mode, so they're going to help, you know, bombing soldiers, tanks, whatever. And I'm going to right click on this guy. And now in theory, if I unpause, they're going to come work for him. And there we go. Looks like the fighters can't get across. Why are we not using the Spanish air bases? Well, for whatever reason, we're not. And so the fighters can't get there, so it's going to be the bombers only. Well, it is what it is. It's not like that in my version of the game. I don't know why we can't use this air base. It's in our control, but never mind. Alright, let's pause now. Now look at this. We've got a flashing icon here. Very low supplies. So if we click on the icon, here it's saying these guys are in very low supply. Now, why are they in low supply? I've got it paused. We're going to carry on seeing these animations, but nothing's actually progressing. It's just an animation trying to show you what's going on. The low on supply, because the nearest supply base, if we hit F4, is here. You can see the route, it's supplying stuff along here. The stuff's coming in from the ports here. And it's saying this is too far away. Now, the easiest way to get around that is to click on the guy who's low on supplies. So it's our Heinz. And here is how they get supplied. The lowest priority is horses. If we click on that once, he's going to use a couple of trucks to supply his stuff. So that's the second best. But the best overall is to click again and see now we've got 3 trucks supplying. And so that is going to use up motorized trucks, which is why we're building them. If we come over to the logistics menu, here they are. You can see we've got 1,400 sat around in a warehouse waiting to be used. And so Heinz is going to make use of a bunch of them. It's not really 3. It's going to a lot more than 3, but it's just a representation. And so now when we unpause, these trucks come in and they're going to start supplying these units. So if we have a look here, supply status 83, 82, 81. See, it's getting lower. Once these trucks arrive, it's going to take a little bit of time to come across from Germany. They're going to start running supplies. And again, if I hit F4, from here, the supply hub, whichever the nearest one happens to be, over to where it's needed. So let's unpause. Let's speed up time a bit. And now you can see the supply status is now getting much higher. So these guys are there. Also, now we've covered this port, they're probably going to get supplies in from there. And there you can see, indeed, they will. So we want this guy. He's carried out the first part of his mission. I want the attack to continue all the way to Bilbo or whatever it's called. So I'm just going to X, right click on that one tile. Tell him to go, and let's unpause. And while this is all ongoing, if I unpause, the rest of the game still takes place. So if we come over to modify government, what we got here, military high commands. I want Rommel, but we can't get him until we've unlocked army innovations. Let's come over to chief of army. I'm going to give this guy division attack because that's going to help with what we're doing. Unassigned divisions, so I'm going to shift left click. I don't want to give these to our front line. We can't anyway. We can only have 3 divisions. I want these guys to go to one of these. So what I can do with these guys selected either individually or shift click for all 3, I can actually right click on one of these divisions here that are training and they will go straight there. So for example, there's something here with 8 divisions. I think that might be this slot here. If I right click, now you can see it's gone up to 11 and they've been put in and they're now going to move into position. Same again here for the supply. Doesn't seem to be any shortage, but let's say now we've got quite a lot of, you know, divisions with this guy. Maybe he's going to start struggling to supply them. We could upgrade from horses to, say, motorization level 2. Just bearing in mind, the more you get to supply motorization, the more this number's going to run out. And if you haven't got any trucks, motorization level 3 is going to be worse than just using horses because you haven't got any trucks. You know, to use horses for free is better than using trucks that you don't have. And so just keep an eye on that. All right. Let's click back onto these volunteers. Let's unpause. See the battle there slowly advancing. Now we may say, well, look, this is a very narrow front line. It's only 1 tile. If I hold down Alt key, select, you see each front line has got 2 ends, yeah, the left and the right flank. In this case, I'm going to hold the right flank, holding my right Alt key, click right mouse button, so Alt and right mouse button, and I'm just going to drag it over to here. I'm going to let go, and that's just going to make the front line ever so slightly wider for my tanks. See, we're now attacking from 2 tiles, not 1. And with all these other allies around us, that should just hopefully crush this bit quicker. See, we're going through there, reckons less than a day for this tile. Now look at this, I sped up and then it just happened and I'm glad I caught it. These guys here are encircled. Now in this case there's 2 units there, look, signified by the number 2 infantry units. When you've got enemy units encircled like this, and by encircled I mean they're cut off from the supply or anything else, these guys are easy to kill. In other words, you can have like 10 of the strongest divisions of tanks and you've just got 20 infantry unit that would never beat them. If you can encircle these tanks and they can't break out and they start running out of supplies, and that's what you want. If you've got stronger units encircled, just keep them there for 3, 4, 5 days till they start running out of supplies, and then, well, Stalingrad, right? Game over. Entire army wiped out. Right, let's unpause. So there's basically no way in there. One of them's just died. You see the hat pop in the air. This one's going to die as well. You'll see the hat pop when it goes. There's 1 division left. I'm surprised he's even lasted 3 or 4 hours. Because he's got at least 3 divisions attacking him. It's actually lasted almost a day at this point. I think now he has lasted a day. Let's speed up time. And there we go. Alright, so now I'm going to pause because look, our guy's actually not got any more orders to do. And if we take a look here, we see that exclamation mark again. So I'm just going to click on him, hit Z, just surround that airport tile, draw the line. Okay, and just hit the attack order. I don't need to wait for him to prepare. It's such a simple, small thing. Let's speed up time. Yeah, we can see units. There's 5 divisions left. Enemy there. We saw a hat pop off. There's another one, 4 left. So whenever you can get in this situation, you basically get really good trades on the enemy and you get a ton of experience as well. So whenever you can encircle somebody, do it. It's just really, it's the best way to do it. All right, meanwhile, everything else still continuing. You can go for coal liquidization, which is a good one. But I also think, where are we? The Reichsautobahn. To get the motorways across Germany a bit. Anschluss, we don't yet got enough people. Hang on, we need 500,000 in the field. How many have we got? 433 plus 111 in training. Let's see about forcing some units out early, see if we can't push it over 5. To force them out early, they've got to be over 25% trained. Well, as it happens, all of these are. So let's force to deploy all of those instantly. And now how many do we got? Now we've got 490,000 in the field. So I need some more. And if we take a look here at these infantry guys, I'm not going to build any... Sorry, these horse. I'm not going to build any more because it's outdated tech. Just those will do. I'll deploy all of those. And now I've got 538,000 in the field. So now if I come over here... Now I can get the Anschluss with Austria. And that's going to be beneficial because it's, you know, it's reintegrating what was larger Germany, right? Did they call it Germania? I can't remember, but it was a lot bigger than it is today, and Austria was part of it. And that's why, in large part, Austrians didn't mind joining back. Anyway, it gets all a bit political and... So we'll go with that. And of course, this is going to be more land, more resources, more manpower, more factories, more everything. And so it's plus, plus, plus all around. Of course, Austria, having been part of Germany, are not against the fact that we've reintegrated certain other countries. Let's say France. If you go into there, you're going to get the French resistance, aren't you? They're not going to be happy that you're there. Unassigned divisions. We've got all the ones that we kicked out early, and once Austria comes over, we're going to get a bunch more there. So let's first of all, let's select them all, and I'll tell you what, come over to the German side. All of these guys, apart from this Panzer one, I want the Panzer one. I'll tell you what, I'll put them with this guy who's got the front line. Bock. Bock. Let's distribute these. I'll tell you what, I'm going to give Bock. Do you know what? Let's give them all. Now you can see he's got too many by 5. He's got 29 out of 24. So I'm just going to take 5 of these divisions off Bock. I want them to be the cavalry ones because they're the weakest anyway. We'll give the 5 divisions to this guy down here on the Maggio line. And I'm going to take a couple of the stronger. Let's take 3. And so that's going to leave him with 12. And the 3 here that are stronger than these cavalry guys, I'm going to send up here to this guy who's got 11. So now he's got 14. So while all that redistribution takes place, let's look at the research. And now it's just a case of continuing on. I'm going to look at getting hospitals. Industry, how are we doing here? Well, this is ready to go. So let's go for dispersed industry 2. And again, that's going to increase things cumulatively. So this one here added all of those bonuses. And this is going to add all of those bonuses on top of the other bonuses. And so on and so on. Right, back over to the... Oh, look, and this Field Marshal has got an upgrade as well, so let's have a look. And so he's got 2 options. We've got Organisation first and Charismatic. So division recovery rate, you know, after a battle, how long until they're ready to fight again. Organisation first, reinforce rate. Now, this might only be 2%, but let me tell you, when you're extended deep into Russia, It takes a long time to get reinforcements through. To knock 2% off that time is well worth it. So let's go with that. Meanwhile, we'll click back over here to the Spanish guys. We'll unpause. And there we see that battle now concluding. And now that that front line is no more, because we've won, these guys have got nothing to do. And if we let go, look at this. They're going to heal. They're going to get the resupplies through. They're going to rest. They're going to, you know, everything good. So now it's time to draw a new front line. Now, if you were trying to win, you'd make quite a narrow line and look at piercing it with these tanks. But because they're going to gain experience the longer that they're fighting, what I'm going to do is actually get Heinz here into a new group. We're going to assign him a field marshal, just whoever's hanging around. This guy will do. Von Rundstedt, he's actually got a trait that we could give him. Let's have a look. Let's go with the organization first again. And I'm at... Oh, let's reselect him. I'm sure I just assigned Rundstedt. Yeah, this is a glitch I noticed before. So here we see Field Marshal is assigned. But if we look down here, it's as if he isn't. But he is. Alright, so selecting this Field Marshal, which we really have. I'm going to click here. And so every... If we decide to send any more, they're going to be given maximum supply. I'm going to hit Z and see this massive front line that weaves across Spain. Bearing in mind, the Spanish are already fighting, so it's not just us. I'm going to assign him to that line, and I'm just going to tell him to work towards, and if we pick somewhere in the middle, let's say here, he's now going to give that order to all of these tanks. Now, they're going to split up and fight alongside the Spanish, but because they're not all concentrated pushing through in one spot, this battle should go on long, and we want it to go on long because of the experience generated. And if it was our war and we were up against Russia, we'd be looking at making narrow punches through the line with the tanks, looking to encircle a larger group of enemy forces, wiping them out, and then repeating process. And if you take a look, the first year or two of the war into Russia, that's what Germany was doing. Once that stalled out and Russia got wise to it, you know, it was all over at that point. Going to tell this guy to begin. You can see he's not got the best confidence, but bearing in mind we do got Spanish, and a lot of them are not yet in position, and so let hit go. And we're just going to let that play out. And now we don't need to worry about this so much because it's going to take him quite some time for this battle to complete. We can come back over here, modify government. Let's have a look. Let's go Chief of Air Force. Let's get Goering in there for the air superiority. Modify Officer Corps. Oh, the signal company's ready. So let's have a look at this. We hadn't had a look at modifying templates yet. I think that's going to be the end of this tutorial when we do. So we come over here to the recruit page. And again, here we can recruit these things. Now we can also create our own templates to recruit divisions in whatever way, shape or form that we like. But for now, let's take a look at modifying an existing one, the Panzer division. Now, bearing in mind, these Panzers, you know, we've got 3 divisions down here in Spain under Heinz. We know that. We see that here, the 3. If we edit the template, we saw this earlier on, this is what these divisions consist of. So how much does each one of these symbols represent? 60 tanks and 500 people. So one of these is 60 tanks. So we've got 60, 120, 240 tanks per divisions. And we've got 3 of those over there. So we've got almost 1,000 tanks. Here we can say, do we want this division to receive priority? Well, I always like priority for my Panzers. So in other words, if I've only got 1 gun to go round, and I've got on the front line a group of Panzers and they need a gun, and I've got a group of infantry and they need a gun, the gun goes to the Panzer first. It's not a 50-50 split. And so I'm going to do that with the elite. And on the reserves, I use military police or just border guards where I don't really expect an enemy to attack, but just in case they do, I put those in as reserves. Again, If there's enough to go around, everybody gets it anyway. But if they don't, you want to think who needs priority. And you will run out of stuff on this game. Now, it's going to cost me army experience to change this template. So don't go changing it willy-nilly. You see, currently we've got 46. So, for example, if I add a tank, it's going to cost me 5 points. Now, that's for every tank division from then on is going to have an extra, what was it, 60 tanks and 500 people. You can see here, adding that extra division, or that extra unit of tanks rather, into the division makes these changes. So clearly our ability to attack stuff and defend and break through is going to be increased because we've got more of it. Fuel capacity is going to go up. Now the red things are not necessarily so good. So you can see manpower has gone up by 500. That's not a good thing. Fuel usage has gone up. Not a good thing. The amount of tanks we need in total has gone up. I mean, you could argue that's not a good thing because it means less supplies. Combat width has gone up to 14. See, it's going to reduce the average reliability. Supply use has gone up. Well, that certainly makes sense. The weight of the overall division has gone up. Weight, all that means is if you're moving things around by ships, the more it weighs, the more ships you need, or the longer it's going to take, one and or the other. But in any other regard, you can ignore weight, and the organizations slightly come down. And to increase organization, we can add more trucks, to get messages and whatnot about. So if we take a look at that, now look at all the increases that are across the board there with those additional trucks. This also accounts for the additional tank. So if we add that one tank, that one truck, these are the differences it makes. See, hard attack up 7, soft attack up 22, defense up 28, and so on. So that's good things to have. The only other thing I want to add on here is the signal company, because that's ready. And that makes a bunch more differences. But importantly, if we take a look, where is it? I can't see the initiative one. There it is, 0%. You see there, that jumps up to 20. So that's a good one to have. It's all going to use support equipment. Now, if we add, we've made 3 changes so far. We've not saved it, but we've made 3. This guy, this guy, this guy. If we hover over the save button, we can see it's going to cost us 360 extra tanks. But we don't have any available. Look, it actually says that. It's going to cost 600 extra infantry equipment. We only got 16. It needs another 270 trucks where we've got 1,000 available, so that's fine. And an extra 120 support equipment. We've got none available. So this is actually going to do more harm than good for now because we're unable to supply it. And a unit that is ill-equipped does worse than a poorer unit in terms of what it should have, but that is fully equipped. So the same 100 guys in a cracked team that have none of what they need are going to be worse than 100 guys that have just got guns, but they've actually got them all. If you see where I'm coming from. So if you're trying to make something fancy, make sure you can equip it. Otherwise, it's going to do worse than something basic that is equipped. So I'm going to get rid of the additional tanks because we can't afford it. Let's see what difference. We still see that's a net gain overall. We still need 600 infantry equipment. We still need 2, which we don't have. We still need 120 support equipment, which we don't have. Now remember, these are elite. These are top priority. So even though we don't have this, as our factories at home make them, they're going to get top priority. I think I'm going to accept this just for now, even though, as you can see, it's not a good thing. But you watch how long it takes. I'm going to hit save. And now if we come over to our divisions in Spain, you can see now, look, they're short on equipment. 69%, 65%, 64%. That's because we just made a bunch of changes to these templates. And the equipment, we saw A wasn't available and B hasn't even got there yet. I got to change the resupply for the Spanish volunteers to high so that they get the new equipment before the Panzers that are waiting in Germany, because clearly here's where it matters. So I'm going to unpause. And as stuff gets built and ferried up, slowly watch these graphs move up. When a unit is under strength fighting, it can still fight, but it's going to deal out less and less damage of what it's capable of doing, and it's going to take losses quicker as well. So you see this guy's already up to 75. Looks like he's getting filled first. The others are in the 60s. Now we're at 74. He's at 62, 62. You can see it's already been a day or two, so you can see how long it takes these supplies to come through. Now he's up to 70, this division. This division's 68. You can see down there how much they're waiting for. So this one division here, he's waiting for 24 tanks, 104 infantry equipments, 46 trucks, support equipment and towed artillery. And obviously as they're fighting, they're continuously losing stuff, but stuff is continuously being supplied through. Take a look on the supply page. Where's it actually coming from? Well, it's coming through these rail networks here. I'm not going to pay to upgrade the Spanish rail networks because we're not going to be there for long. Got a new support research thing here. So improved machine tools. So once again, the efficiency cap we spoke about at the beginning of the game with this one, we've now got the next level. And so that's going to add another 10% on. And then we got something over here. I think I'm going to start work on the radar. You know, the technology. I see these guys now. Oh, they're still in the 60s. That one's in the mid-70s. He got there pretty quick, but come on, where are the trucks? Is he still waiting for trucks? No, now look, this top guy, he's not waiting for trucks. He's just waiting for some tanks and some support equipment. The next guy, tanks and support equipment. The next guy is waiting for some trucks. So if we come over to the logistics menu, this begins to make sense. So we're short on infantry equipment. We've got plenty of trucks, and so that's why 2 of the 3 divisions have already been kitted out. Remember, we assigned them all that extra unit of trucks. 2 of the 3 have already got them. The 3rd guy will be getting them soon. We're short on support equipment, so that's why even though these are top priority, they're not getting their support equipment because it's not yet out the factory. And we're also short on tanks. We're about 100 tanks short. So if we come over to the production, you think support equipment needs increasing by 1. Tanks need increasing by 1. I go single factory, single factory, single factory until I've got 5. And when I've got 5 factories, I press that button just to, you know, tidy up the screen a little bit. In fact, we can do the same for the assault rifles here. We see we've got 10 factories doing that. So if we hit the times 5, still got 10 factories doing it, but each one of these icons representing 5 factories there. Now we need those equipments coming through. We see we've got 1 military factory that's nearly done. We've then got another one that's going to be started. You know what? Let's move that up to a higher priority. And this one here, I'm just going to drop these down. I know they were on the way, but once these 3 military factories are made, that's going to result in, and again, it's from top-down priority. So first priority of factory is going to go here. The next factory is going to go for the Panzers. And then the 3rd one for the Stuka. I'm thinking the 3rd one, what was the other thing we were short? Was it infantry equipment, support, and tanks? No, that'll be fine. And I'll tell you for why. I'm going to disband one of the units in Germany that we don't need, that was taking up resources. I'm thinking, do you know, the Panzer one might be the perfect one. To begin with, I'm just going to get rid of a couple of these cavalry units. If we press delete with these 2 selected, We're going to gain the troops. Well, we're not short on troops. We're going to gain 23 pieces of artillery, 1,000 pieces of infantry equipment, and 11 pieces of support equipment. That stuff is then going to be redistributed to where it's needed, starting with the highest priority. We know the highest priority is over here in Spain with these Panzers. It's not going to be instantaneous, but it's going to move those pieces of supply back to the capital, and then they're going to be resent over here. So we should see these orange graphs ever so slowly increasing. I realize the production of Panzers, it's going to take its time. Yeah, now you see 72, 73, 67. Remember, they were all in the 60s when we began. So it's just a case of waiting. Of course, they're fighting the whole time. You may elect them to go, you know, more careful while they're waiting for resupply. That would be the perfect time. So if we go to careful, you can see they're going to take breaks for longer and they're going to wait for their supply. The green is basically how organized they are. And a unit that is very organized is ready to fight. And as it loses organization, it's going to lose its ability to fight. So that's not that people are dying. It's more like people are getting tired and they need a sleep and something to eat. Think of it more like that. Anschluss. So it looks like finally we've got Austria. Okay. So now look, Austria down here now belongs to the German Reich. With it, we get all the military people here that were in Austria because it was agreed. You know, we didn't invade them. It was agreed. And so these guys, if we come over to the German theatre, I think we'll set them with a new commander. Go with this horse guy. Going to be working with Italy anyway. I always think Yugoslavia is always a little bit questionable. And so we'll put them on the border there, these Austrian guys. And not only that, we now get access to the additional factories and so on. So if we take a look, we've got 3 factories now from Austria. Well, support equipment and light tanks. We need both of those. So I'm going to put one on support equipment, and there we go. Light tank, we've got 5. Let's put another one. How much spare rubber? None. We've spent it all, so let's go. All of these, we can see where we're short. We've got, for example, spare artillery. We see with the 246 in storage. These ones with the first aid symbol we're short of. And these ones with the yellow amber arrow mean we're upgrading those ones. And so, really, the ones with the first aid symbol are the ones most desperate. Put one extra. Oh, no, we've run out of factories now, but that's fine. The next 2 factories, we'll put one on. We'll put 2 on to weapons. Put 1 onto support equipment. And I'm going to put 1 onto towed anti-air because we don't have any anti-air production yet, and that's quite essential. In fact, we'll put 3 onto there once it's complete. National focus. Oh, we've got the Anschluss. Let's get the autobahns done. Coming over to modify government, you can see we've got loads of points. And thinking Chief of Navy. Let's get this guy in. Mainly just to get that 0.30 daily experience trickling in. So that's going to be in addition to all the training that's taking place. And so that's that one done. Actually, we've still got points for something else. Let's come over to the aircraft designer. I always find Messerschmitt's the best one early on because before anything else, you want to win the air battle. And to win the air battle, you need fighters. And so anything that helps fighters, that's Messerschmitt's. Then if you look, once you've got air domination and you want to help pound the ground, Junkers is the way to go after that. And again, that's where your combat air support. So that's going to be good for when you're actually fighting. And these are going to be, you know, your Stukas diving down, dropping bombs. But to begin with, Messerschmitt, at least that's the way I like to go. While we've been focusing on that battle in Spain, let's take another look. So yeah, there's that new cruiser that popped out with a bunch of destroyers. I'm going to assign these to the existing fleet over here. So if we set this guy, we see we've got that fleet training. And what was it? Was it... yeah, it's a heavy cruiser, look. So if we come over here, this group here has already got 2 heavy cruisers there. You see this one here is with the battleships. So I'm going to select this one here with the 2 cruisers. We've got the automatic resupply. So if I add for that additional cruiser, that cruiser that's just sat around in port is going to come over and join this group. The other thing, I also want some additional destroyers. They're going to provide cover. We saw there was a group of them. So I'm going to put, they say it's usually 6 destroyers per 1 capital ship, but we don't got anything like enough destroyers at the minute. 4 already there, and ask for 6 more to go. Okay. Unpause, and because this guy's in training there, you can see the heavy cruiser went there, and so did the destroyers. There's 1 more to go, but that's not built yet. That's fine. Let's come out of there. How are we doing for Air Force, by the way? These guys' training are done, so I'm going to stop that guy. Stop this guy. He's a bomber, so again, I'm just starting to surround Poland with the bombers that are trained. These are not yet complete. That's fine. Have we got any spare? So add new air wing, and look at this. We've got 2 lots of fighters that we could do, and that they're going to be fully stocked, and these 2 combined would almost make a 3rd. In fact, let's start making that 3rd. Okay. Now we can see there that they're about moving in. Deploying. It usually combines aircraft of different types to fulfill the 3rd. So if I slow time down, let's unpause. See, there's 24 out of 100. On the 2 that weren't enough, let's start training. And so far, it's not elected to transfer them. Does say there are some transferring. If we look down there, 50, 60% done. Let's speed up time a little bit. Hindenburg disaster. And there we go. So look, we've got the 2 units that were complete. And that one that didn't have enough, they've mixed that other old type of plane. That will have come from Austria. And they've combined to make the 3rd unit. So we'll get those lot training. Great. All right, so back over to this battle in Spain that has been raging. This guy, how are we doing? 70% supply, 60%, 67. So I'm not going to increase his aggressiveness until that increases. 58%, so that 1 tank. What is it? I'm guessing support equipment, right? Is that what you're most needing? 30 tanks, 20 pieces of support equipment. Speed up time. Wow, it's taken up. Finally, they've just gotten a bunch of supplies. Now he's up to 69. The other ones are 77. The other ones are 81. So I'm going to resume a normal attack. Just, you know, because I really need action here. Got some more research available. Let's go for that excavation one, seeing as we've got the bonus there. If we take a look here, we're running very low on fuel. We've got about 49 days of fuel left. And so to help with this, I'm going to have to trade. And again, we're going to lose a factory for the whole time that we're trading. So we've come down to the oil. Of course, early on in the war, Germany was allied with Soviet Union. So let's go with them. How many factories do we want to trade away for oil? So I'm going to trade 2 factories for 16 oil. We're not going to need any convoys, and the reason why is because we've got a land connection with Russia through Poland. Now, if we were at war with Poland, we wouldn't be able to go through Poland, and then we would need convoy either through here or even around all the way this way. Either way, this is for now, so we'll click OK. You can see we lose a couple of factories for that trade, and it's only while we trade. So the instant you stop trading, you get those factories back. You know, it's not like the factory's disappearing. You're just losing the use of the factory during the trade. In other words, the use of the factory is being loaned to Russia, They're giving us the oil, we're giving them the use of the factory for as long as we decide to continue the trade. Now if we look 49 days until the oil runs out, if I unpause, that's going to increase because of the influx of oil. In fact, it's enough that in 5 years our coffers will be full. Keeping my eye, I'm kind of concerned about this division that seems to be having a real tough time of resupplying itself. It's back down to 60% again. China declared war on the Chi-Coms. This division's 70s, this one in the 70s. Now they're all in the 70s. Ideally, you want them all in the 90s. You're never going to have them at 100% unless they're sat there doing nothing. 91% is as good as 99, by the way. As soon as it drops to 89, 81%, it's rounded off to the nearest 10% in terms of effectiveness. So to go from 69% to 71% is a big deal. From 79 to 81, big deal. From 71 to 79 makes no difference in terms of how well it performs. And there we got 79, there we got 69. And yeah, I think this now is going to be the end of the tutorial. We'll speed through the time. See, we got another decision here. I'm going to go start going for the guy that's going to help build my war industry. And finally, we've got doctrine. We didn't discuss this yet because it's not happened. And this has come from all that fighting in Spain. And so here we're talking about experience. So you can see this one's already unlocked. This one we've now earned. It's the only one we can go through. And it's going to unlock the delay tactic, and you can read there what it's actually going to give us. So, for example, it's going to give us an extra 15 points on the organization front, as well as enable a delay tactic. So I'm going to click on that just to get it done. And now we'll continue. See, it's not the most tidiest front line in the world. Now, if this was Russia and you were fighting, you would push tanks here into this tile. You'd have tanks here. You'd push them into this tile. And once they won that fight, this slot would be cut off. And then you'd surround them. Research slot. Let's get the rubber just because that's next on the list. Japan declares war on China. Reich Autobahn has been complete. And so now it's the case, you know, coasting. Here's for your resources. You certainly want to think about aligning these two before the war goes off in a major way. Demand Zutenland, which is your... let me have a look. Where are we? It's like one little state that's part... Is it part of... I've forgotten exactly where it is. It's like one state. I can't remember exactly where it is. It might be like something like here or... Anyway, in any case... I think that leads to the Munich conference. Or we could do the naval upgrades. I mean, there's so much to do, right? Tell you what, let's go Army Innovations, and then we'll try and get enough manpower. You see, we need 725 for that. So let's go there. And in terms of recruiting, well, we're short on support equipment still. I think, and what another little thing you can do, it's not really a trick, but you might want to call it that. You can reassign people. So let's say, right, we've got these cavalry divisions. And we've got 3 of them. I want to reassign one of them as infantry. So you select your cavalry division. You've got this change template here. Select the infantry. It's going to say okay. So what's it going to do? Well, there were more soldiers than horses. We know that. So we're going to need another 4,800 people. We're going to need another 390 pieces of equipment. Infantry, so that's your guns, as well as 22 support equipment. And then you can see manpower, infantry equipment, fine. We don't got enough support equipment. But you can do it anyway. Now you can see the division changes over. It loses all that experience because clearly there's a load of new guys that are not experienced. And we're going to be short on equipment as well. I suggest then sending this guy for training. I mean, he's in the division that's already training, so it's fine. Now you can see now, look at that. He was basically 100% strength. He's now at 50. And that's because all that new stuff has yet to be delivered to him. If we unpause, there you can see a large delivery taking place. He's now at 60%. He's now at 70. And so on. Right. War is starting to unfold. We've got more research to do. Coming over to the engineering side. Air. Navy. I guess we could, so we're not researching ahead of time and getting penalised, start unlocking the military police, because we're going to be needing those once we start invading. I mean, it's not like you, quote, need military police when you invade places. It's just, if you do, they're going to be a lot easier to control. Because they'll start rising up against you if you don't do anything. Alright. That there's going to be the end of the tutorial, and I hope you found it useful. So it was a proper guide, talk through with some action there as well. Keep doing what you've been doing. As and when these icons pop up, keep dealing with them one by one. Okay, we've got a naval one. You may not wish to spend it because you may think, you know what, I want to upgrade my boats instead, and that costs naval experience. I think for now I'm just going to go with it. I'm going to go with the convoy side because, of course, Germany with their U-boats was big on it. And, of course, you're never going to win Britain against a British Navy on the surface fleet. Certainly not for the first 2 or 3 years of the war. If you start rolling and focus on Navy, you can afterwards. Modify government ship designer. So let's come here. So there's 2 options. This guy is basically for aircraft carriers for going across the Atlantic. I would say this one for everyone else. That's every decision already made, thanks to our being on easy. Research here, we've got 3 lots. Let's have a look, what can we get? These are all slightly ahead. Maintenance company as well as logistics. Well, we're certainly not going to need logistics for a while. Let's unlock maintenance just so we've got it. And then I think everything else is going to have to be slightly ahead of time. So they're too far ahead. Let's get that one. Let's get that one. All right. Until next time, take care wherever in the world you may be. Bye-bye.